So this is a question and answer session?
Mm-hmm. That sounds good.
You know, a month or two ago, a very nice essay came to us and was distributed around the community by Tripurari Swami.
Mm-hmm.
And he was addressing this issue, and the explanation goes something like this, that Narayana is teaching, in one sense, a bona fide process, but that can be traced in our sampradaya.
Mm-hmm.
However, at the point where Bhaktisiddhanta and then his followers, including Srila Prabhupada, made some adjustments because that process just wasn't applicable for us.
Yes.
Something to that effect. And he did it in a very scholarly way and traced it back to the Six Goswamis.
Right.
So I thought perhaps you could comment on that. Maybe you're familiar with that.
Well, yeah, I remember part of that. I believe he was trying to give like a very balanced explanation to something that had already been put out there, which Madhav Maharaj, you know this, that now this movement is nearly 100 years old, and it's time to come out with the nectar and just get it out there and spread it out there in every town and village. And previously, there had to be adjustments. It had to be kept in reserve, but now the time has come to just inundate the world with this sweetest nectar. Was that something that, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I'm talking. That's what this is about, right?
They're referring to an article that was a statement given by Junior Swami.
Yeah. So this article kind of was a balance to that. Yes, these things are there in the writings of the Goswamis and the writings of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. These are not concocted things. They're not making these things up. Moreover, these things are there. There is much description of the Leela of Krishna, Govinda Leela Amrita. There is much description of Leela of Krishna and the Gopis and Manjaris in Vilap Kusha Manjali and in other places. Nonetheless, preaching means preaching about the holy name. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he made an adjustment. In other words, he brought it into proper perspective. A proper perspective, is that the word? Perspective? Proper perspective. Perspective. He brought it into a proper perspective. It was much out of focus. It was quite distorted by the imitationists, those who take it cheaply, those who want it without the qualification. The whole thing had been rendered spoiled. But in its original pure form, smarnam, rasvichar, all these things, remembering the Lord's pastimes, discussing the Lord's pastimes, these things are there. The point is that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he made an adjustment and gave that adjustment to who? People who are more qualified than ourselves. And they kept that standard and gave that to us. Prabhupada gave that to us. So are the people we're giving it to, are they more qualified for it than Srila Prabhupada, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Puri Maharaj, Keshav Maharaj? Are these people today roaming the earth? Are they more qualified for this than the actual direct disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta? No. That adjustment which was given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is for all time. It was not for a certain limited time. It is for all time, and it is intrinsic to the very nature of the soul. The soul has a distant relationship with Krishna in ras, not direct. The soul, the jiva, is das, 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 anudas. Not Krishna das. Das, 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 anudas. Servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Again, these are not just poetic fancy words. This is actually our position. Personalities like Lalita and Vishaka, they are not living entities. They are direct expansions of Srimati Radharani. Even Chandravali, she is not a living entity competing with Radharani. This is not possible. Chandravali herself is an expansion of Radharani. I once said a few times that in the realm of Krishna's pastime, in Madhurya Ras alone, those expansions of Radharani were each one representing a particular aspect of her service mood. And her service mood is so full and so complete that she expands herself into millions of gopis. Those are the parshads. They're all there before even any one of us is included there. The jivas come in the next wave. That first wave, millions of expansions of Radharani. You follow me up to this point, what I'm saying? So I had said that many times, and then once I was reading Radha Krishna Ganodesh Dipika. And I found where it is said, Rupa Goswami says that there are 74,000 expansions of Radharani. And I thought, oh, I kind of jumped the gun. I've kind of overemphasized the thing. And I felt a little, embarrassed with myself. A little, it was like a lesson, a little gung-ho, such a high topic. Who am I to say millions of times? How do I know? I actually hadn't read it millions of times. I didn't hear that Prabhupada said millions of expansions. I actually had only heard of a few directly mentioned, and then some insinuation, and I took that and ran the full length of it to say millions. How many millions? Don't know. Millions of expansions, right? So, you understand? I was kind of like put in my place there, 74,000. Then a few days later, I gathered my courage and I continued to read. A few pages over, Jiva Goswami says in a purport, Rupa Goswami has mentioned 74,000 just to give the conditioned souls an opportunity to grasp the situation. Actually, there are millions of expansions of Radharani, not 74,000. So some will say, some scholar will say, Jiva Goswami is contradicting Rupa Goswami. But Jiva Goswami is not contradicting. He is understanding what he means and why he has said certain things. And then he is disclosing that for future readers, you see. You follow? Like in increments. Did you catch it? 74,000. Okay, then a few pages later, actually several millions. So, the position of a liberated soul, he does not become a parshad, an expansion. In Shaki Ras, Vatsalya Ras, there are expansions of Baladev. Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaj, they are not jiva souls as we are. They do not come from the marginal plane. They are expansions. In Vatsalya Ras, there are similar expansions in all of the rasas. Shanta Dasha, Sakya and Vatsalya Ras, all expansions of parshads. The names like Sudam, Subal, Patrak, Madhumangal, and they're not ordinary jiva souls. They are expansions of Lord Balaram in Sakya Ras. They're not Vishnu Tattva. They are living entities that manifest from Lord Balaram. They are known as Parshad Jivas. We are known as Tatastha Jivas. We are manifest from another plane of the Lord's potency, known as the marginal plane. That is sometimes described as coming from Shankarshan and sometimes from Mahavishnu. But these parshads come from either Radharani or Balaram directly. So, being from the marginal potency, we have a designated position as servant of the Lord's eternal servants. There is also a reason for this. Krishna, in the course of his Leela, he tries to render service himself to his devotees, the highest devotees, the Parshad devotees. The Parshad devotees are very expert not to be captured in Krishna's plan and to receive service from him. They are only expert to serve him, and they are able to escape his plans to serve them. In the rarest and rarest occasions, Krishna succeeds in rendering them some service, like carrying Nanda Maharaja's shoes on his head. Nanda Maharaj is the devotee, Krishna the Supreme Lord. But in their Vatsalya, he succeeds. In Vatsalya, he can succeed more. In Sakyaras, also, he can succeed. Sometimes he carries a cowherd boy on his shoulders. In Sakyaras and Vatsalya Ras, sometimes he succeeds. But in Madhurya Ras, he fails again and again and again and again. How to serve his dearmost. It is very hard. He rarely succeeds. So it is sometimes said, with this idea in mind, the jivas come into existence in eternity, to render service to his devotees. In this way, the Lord's desire is fulfilled through our existence. Das, 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 anudas, serving the servant of the servant of the servant. We say in the beginning, we are meant to please Krishna. It is true, but how? Not by directly pleasing him, but by pleasing his servitors. Then we are pleasing him. And there is, I learned a new word recently called vicarious. Does everybody else know this word? I have a very poor vocabulary in English. I wasn't educated very well in the world. So I have a very poor vocabulary. But this point I have understood spiritually without a word to describe it for a long time in the essence of this vicarious experience. And there in the spiritual world, it is in its fullness, in its completion. What Krishna is experiencing with his consort and with his playmates, the cowherd boys, or with his parents, Mother and Yasoda, the experience, that conjugal love, that Vatsalya love, that love in Sakyaras, that is vicariously experienced by all the servitors in that particular ras. And the higher grade of servitors, they not only experience the feeling of that, but some of the symptoms are manifest in their spiritual bodies also. Radha and Krishna, if there is some expectation, and if trembling is a corresponding feature of their reciprocation, that trembling may appear on the body of another devotee who is servant of Radharani, who is yet far away in another kunj. The symptom, the haripalation, do you follow? The very symptom, it is vicariously experienced. This wave comes down in this way, Prabhupada writes, in Vrindavan, even the blades of grass, they are experiencing Madhurya. When Madhurya Ras is in full-fledged play, the experience goes to every atom in existence. And even comes down to this world. Without their pleasure, there would be no pleasure here. Here it is in its shadowy state, or a perverted state, reflected state. But if there were no pleasure in the spiritual world being experienced, there wouldn't be any pleasure in this world. That is also only possible because it is there first in its pure state. Did you ever wonder about the charm of children? I mean, if a child comes walking in here, everybody just looks at that little thing, you know. They are charming. They're rather dirty, you know. It doesn't matter if they're dirty, they're drooling, they're charming, you know. What is the charm of Krishna? What beauty and sweetness is in Krishna? It is inconceivable how much beauty is in Krishna, how much charm is found in Krishna. It's absolutely inconceivable. But where does that charm and where does that beauty come from? How do kids learn to walk? You know? How do they do it? How those little creatures learn to talk? They're only 2 years old. You can't even learn a language in 2 years if we put you in school. And you have your adult mentality. How do they learn to talk? Well, it's their propensity. What is that? Where does that come from? That comes from Krishna. And you know what? They all cry the same. Whether they're African babies in little, huts in the plains of Zimbabwe, or they're in igloos in Africa, or they're in the palace of the Tsar in Russia, Or they're in Hollywood Boulevard in Hollywood. When they're born, they all make the same sound. They make the same sound. They all cry the same. You know, they have that part where they scream and then kind of gasp for the breath. It's like, well, they're going to make it, and then it comes out in the end. Wherever a kid is born in the world, they all cry the same. What do they do? Get together before they came here and say, okay, the routine is this. When we cry, this is what. Where does this come from? Krishna cries. In his childhood pastime, he cries, therefore we cry. Everything comes down from there. Everything. But here it takes on some distortion, some perversion. Generally, we have heard dog is number one non-devotee. Dog number one. Prabhupada used to say, non-devotee number one, dog. Krishna has two dogs. He has two dogs, two eternal dogs. Rupa Goswami even gives their name. Krishna plays a veena. Radharani also plays a veena. Krishna's veena, the name of that veena, his different types of flutes, his ornaments, his favorite cows. There's also cats there. There is also cats in the pastimes of Krishna. And these things are mentioned in some of the writings of the Goswami. So everything is there, everything originates there. Whatever we experience here, it has its origin there. So, but in terms of the spiritual subject matter, the living entities are servants of Krishna, and they will come into that experience through the connection of service. By serving the senior members of any particular ras, then they will have an experience of that. And then, on occasion, sometimes, they are brought in direct play with Krishna. And that has not got even a drop to do with their desire. Prabhupada emphasizes this point. I keep asking, where's that book? I saw it floating around here, In Search of the Ultimate Goal of Life. Someone had it. I thought it went to the school and then it came back, or what? But Prabhupada in 1959, he wrote this essay, and he makes an explicit point here that the gopis are sometimes drawn into direct association of Krishna, but he makes the point that they do not do so based on any desire of their own. They are at that point also serving Radharani. It is her desire that they meet with Krishna, and therefore they meet with Krishna. And that goes down in all the rasas. Because Mother Yasoda wants someone to be nanny, as we say in some countries, to be nursemaid to Krishna for the day. Then she asks one of the other Vatsala Rasis, the elderly gopis, please come and take care of Krishna for the day. And in this way, this elderly gopi, she will breastfeed Krishna. She is brought there and asked to come there, not based on her desire. Oh, I want Krishna, I want to breastfeed Krishna. No, based on the desire of Mother Yasoda. She is subservient to Mother Yasoda. Mother Yasoda has requested, and she is there to fulfill that request. In all the rasa, it runs like that. And in Madhurya Rasa, more so than any other rasa. So, this position that we are given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, this is not a word of caution because society is not ready to deal with it. It is in itself training for our position eternally, you see. A little distant and below, we were to serve the higher devotees. That is our position. We exist for that. It is also got connection with Vipralambha, the most powerful feeling ever discovered in the heart of a pure soul was the feeling of separation for Krishna. Separation. Sambhog is not as powerful to deliver you from this world, but the feeling of separation is so powerful that it is guaranteed. And I heard a nice description given by Srila Puri Maharaj. He told, Mahaprabhu knew this so very well. So he showed the path of Vipralambha. In separation, we will serve. In separation, we will cultivate the mood of separation not the mood of union. But it is true, the pastimes of Krishna are not for your enjoyment, not for my enjoyment. And, all right, let neophyte devotees hear about Krishna, but the fact is, they're still enjoying. And now they're enjoying Krishna's pastimes. And this is a defect. This produces an aparad. You'll find in Srila Prabhupada's purports to Upadeshamrita, he says, if you try to enjoy Mahaprasadam, you fall victim of the tongue. But Prabhu, I thought it was Mahaprasadam and it's transcendental. It is transcendental. And the whole experience becomes spoiled when you try to enjoy, you see. So before we can approach things which are so sacred and so divine, we have to make sure that there's no element of enjoyment in us. Now, if even devotees, practicing devotees of 50, 60, and 70 years will still offer this word of caution and show us by their own behavior that such caution is required, what to speak of Bhakti Joe? Should he just be drug into the discussions of Rasa Leela and such things? The answer is no. He will not understand these things. What is required is great faith. Great faith is required. And great faith means nishta. Oh, this is the book. This is Srila Prabhupada's book. Great faith means nishta. And nishta comes after anartha nivritti. The stage of purification has reached a substantial platform. And the plaguing anarthas, unwanted disease of the heart, that has now been removed. Then nishta. Anyway, I won't try to go and find this in here. It takes some time, but this is something Srila Prabhupada wrote in 1959. Has anyone here ever read this? You read it? He takes this from the discussions of Ramananda Roy and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Many things he covers here very nicely. So we have added subtitling, it's called. Above every so many paragraphs there are subtitles. This is just to help the reader focus on the topic of the next few paragraphs. It's very nice. He goes through Sakya Prem, Vatsalya Prem, Madhurya Prem, explaining these things.
Arguments of the people is that a shortcoming in Prabhupada's teachings is that he never focused on the goal enough. That is really pointing out and emphasizing that you really have to focus on the goal, not just the process, but the goal. And therefore, by hearing and discussing and about Krishna and the gopis, we
you prepare yourself to be, no offense, but you prepare yourself to be born as a woman in your next life. This is the result. No offense to the women, but Srila Puri Maharaj said, those who go to hear about the gopis, who are not beyond the bodily concept of life and who are not fit for that topic, then they do not get the gopi swarup of a transcendental, beautiful queen in Braj. They take birth, and they take the birth as a woman in their next life. Then one devotee said, oh, Guru Maharaj, maybe that's why there's so many sincere Vaishnavis on the planet. And everybody just sort of said, well, maybe. So that's not any slight, but what you fix your mind on, this helps develop a situation which will come to you in the future. If you fix your mind on I am servant, I am das, I am servant, I am das, if you fix your mind on the lower, but seemingly lower platform, this will never do any harm to you. I am servant of Krishna, I am servant of Vaishnava, that is my position. Well, if you take your birth in the next life as the servant of a Vaishnava, you scored. You won. You win. But if you just fix your mind on a gopi, but actually you're not transcendental, then, well, the best thing we can give in your direction is just another material birth. and not guaranteed a Vaishnavi even, because you're meditating on Gopi. Maybe something far away from there, because maybe an aparad was there. The central focus is the holy name of Krishna. When the whole Bhagavatam is closed, they never tell you this. When the whole Bhagavatam is finished, what does the Bhagavatam say? The Bhagavatam says, Nama Sankirtanan Yasya prayer. Now let us engage in the holy name, the Sankirtan of the holy name of the Supreme Lord. That is the conclusion of Bhagavatam. So if you want entrance into this plane, then give yourself to the holy name of Krishna. So anyone can say, there is an element of truth there. It's not totally false. The gopis are the highest devotees. Radha Dasyam, the service of Radharani. This is the highest aspiration within the plane of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Our acharyas, they were all great. Our acharyas, indeed, they were from the Manjari section. Even their names are given in Chaitanya Charitamrita and other places. Selfless sacrifice is the qualification. Nishta, firm faith, is the qualification. Purification, anartha nivritti. This is the qualification. This is the preaching of our acharyas about this thing. This reality is real. How to approach that reality. How to be a fit candidate in that world. Don't spoil your highest prospect eternally. Don't make a mess of this. There are agents who protect that world. No one passes without the proper qualification. No one goes unnoticed who has the proper qualification. It's like, this is an all-win situation. We can't lose. The other way, you run the risk. You may fail. You may make a mistake. You may make an offense. You may be looked at upon as an intruder. But if you are taken there by higher agents, you are brought into that world, you see, then you are safeguarded all the way. And they are not mindless. They do not have amnesia. And they are not neglectful. When we are ready for that, we have the qualification for that, we will be drawn into that plane. There is a verse, Yada hi Gaura Padarabinde. According to your surrender at the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu, you will find that you are, as if in a miracle, you are transformed and you find yourself engaged in the service of Srimati Radharani. Just by your surrender to Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu is served through the Nam Sankirtan movement. Actually, the Sahajiyas only started doing Sankirtan in the last 75 years. Before the time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, the Sahajiyas did not do Sankirtan. And he proved so strongly that the path to perfection is Sankirtan that they all had to adopt it, even keeping their Sahajiya practices. They all had to adopt it in order to keep their status quo, you see. Just like sometimes we say, you see the pictures of Durga, she's wearing a garland of skulls, you know. And you ever see what kind of tilak those skulls are wearing? They're wearing this, 3 lines. So one old sannyasi said, but Maharaj, don't point that out to many people, or soon the Shaivites will start making posters and the garland of skulls will be So that's what happens. Sometimes when the apparent defect is isolated and shown, then that defective party, they also adopt that. So that practice, you see. They say if you're in the CIA, if you're a spy, you have to go to a training school that tells you, things like, don't play with your ring on your finger like this, because only Americans do this. There's all these little traits. There's the way they light cigarettes and use that lighter, and the way they strike, and the way they cover. There's a whole thing. People in different countries, they have different body language, you see. I was told in Russia, a gentleman never sits like this. Never. What to speak of like this. Always like this, 2 feet on the ground. So you're a spy in Russia and you go like this, you're dead. Whatever. There's a school that teaches body language, how to act. Why am I mentioning that? I forgot now.
Because you have to be trained.
So I was trying to make some other point. Huh?
Imposter. We could be revealed as imposter if we're not qualified.
Yeah, well, that's the point. So if we're really sincere, then we should qualify. We are not opposed to the Leela of Krishna, and we are not opposed to hearing about Rasa Leela either. When's the last time you read Rasa Leela? There are only one or two intimate verses there. Only one or two. Everything else is a different story. It's about something else. It's not about the amorous love. It's about the separation and the search for Krishna that takes place when Krishna leaves the rasa dance. And there's a hidden part of the story where Radharani leaves the rasa dance first, and Krishna follows to search for her, and then everybody leaves to search for Krishna, and then they discover these footprints of Krishna, and then they discover there's somebody with Krishna. And then it starts coming out. Who is this? This is the one who has pleased the Lord the most. This is Radharani. And the glory of Radharani is shown. Then they go together. And suddenly, again, there's only one pair of footprints. Radharani is abandoned. Krishna abandons her. Actually, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he was asked once, well, why did Krishna leave Radharani? He became very angry. Why do you ask this question? He asked his disciple. I find no devotion in this question. Why do you ask this? He was very irritated, very upset that this was asked, because he is so much given to Radharani. Yeah, it's a fact. It did happen. But he doesn't want to hear about it. Don't tell me this. I don't want to hear about it. He is so much given to Radharani in his devotion. This is not palatable to his ears. Then Srila Sridhar Maharaj he said, but it is there in Bhagavatam. It happened. So he just looked what Bhakti Vinod Thakur had said. And Bhakti Vinod Thakur gave an explanation. Bhakti Vinod Thakur said, to see the beauty of Radharani in her anguish for Krishna, Krishna vanished and just ducked behind a bush. He didn't leave her, actually. He was just hidden from her sight. He could not leave her, actually. He stayed in immediate contact with her, but he wanted to see her anguish. Pastimes of love. But from one side at that point, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he cannot tolerate to hear that, or you have put the sound in my ear that Krishna has left Radharani. I cannot tolerate the sound. And he was angry with that disciple who asked that. In another place, Bhakti Vinod Thakur in his prayer, he says, I do not want to hear even the name of this so-called competition to Radharani. I cannot tolerate even to hear her name, this so-called competition. It is unbearable. But yet then Rupa Goswami, he writes something about that competition. He writes about Chandravali. He tells us who Chandravali is. He tells us there is no competition to Radharani. Chandravali herself is Radharani. Chandravali is an expansion. So you say, well, what's going on here? It's like Rupa Goswami's telling you. Bhaktivinoda says, don't even want to hear her name. Saraswati Thakur said, why do you ask that question? Bhaktivinoda Thakur answered the question. It's just like, what's going on here? Love isn't a 3-foot straight ruler. Love is like this. It moves like this. Rupa Goswami says, love moves in a crooked way. So, where some feeling is there, why do you ask the question, I don't want to hear that name? That is like a feeling statement. That is called bhava. That is their bhava. That is the position where they are situated in their love of the divine couple. They are very much sided to one side. And anything else, they cannot tolerate that. Well, Rupa Goswami, though, he entered what's called Tatastha Vichar. Tatastha Vichar means the marginal observation. It is uncommitted. It is a balanced overview of actually what's going on. And that is required for us, the neophyte practitioners. Otherwise, we could, in our neophyte expression, adopt an offensive mentality towards Chandravali. That wouldn't be very good. It is not possible for us to discard Chandravali, because we're not discarding based on a pure heart and pure love, you see. When one is discarding, I don't want to even hear her name, after the development of pure love, oh, that is sweet. Krishna likes that. That is sweet. Radharani likes that. That is sweet. That is sweet. But if that pure love isn't there and you disregard like that, that could be a problem. Now the tendency is disregard Advaita Acharya. That was last week's, 2 weeks ago's latest from their community. Advaita Acharya cannot give Brajabhav. That's the latest. So, so I happen to be, when these things come up, I have an added advantage. I look these things up in the books of Srila Sridhar Maharaj and in the folio, and most of these things are discussed because 1,000 hours sitting with great inquisitiveness with a self-realized soul will really reveal a lot. And sure enough, that was also discussed. What is the gift of Advaita Acharya? So Srila Sridhar Maharaj told, I also read in Srila Puri Maharaj's book, and it's also there in Prabhupada's book, if you have just to clean your glasses and have a look, he brings Mahaprabhu to this world. Advaita Acharya draws Mahaprabhu down to this world. And Kaviraj Goswami fervently prays to Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and Advaita Acharya Prabhu, and he mentions in Chaitanya Charitamrita, without their blessings, not just Mahaprabhu and Gaurnitai, but Advaita Acharya also, no one will taste Krishna Prema. So I don't have to use the vocabulary he does or he doesn't give Brajabhav, but he brings the embodiment of Prema to this world. He calls Mahaprabhu to this world. Then Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, he explained, his direct connection gives one up to the plane of Viraja. Sadashiva Mahavishnu. What he is, he gives up to that. But he draws Mahaprabhu down and he gives us Mahaprabhu. And then he said, and Nityananda Prabhu, he takes care from there. Nityananda Prabhu will be taken by Nityananda Prabhu. And then after that, Gadadhar Pandit. Gadadhar Pandit is a very special personality in the higher platforms of love of God in Chaitanya Leela. He is indispensable personality. It is said that Nityananda Prabhu can regulate the devotees in love of God who are in the Shantadasya, Sakya, and Vatsalya, but not in Madhurya. The devotees in love of God in Madhurya Ras, they're regulated by Gadadhar Pandit because he is Radharani. So for four, is it four? The Shantadasya, Sakya, Vatsalya. For 4 rasas, Baladev is the supreme Guru Tattva. But for 1 rasa, Madhurya Rasa, Gadadhar is the Guru Tattva and Pancha Tattva. In Krishna Leela, Balaram is the Guru Tattva for 4 rasas. Radharani is the Guru Tattva for 1 ras. Then Lord Balaram has his expansion. In which way he expands is a great mystery, not as Vishnu Tattva, because he is Vishnu Tattva, but it is, rather the word is used, representation. As he is the brother of Krishna in Vrindavan, he expands himself as Ananga Manjari, the sister of Srimati Radharani. Radharani has a sister. And Baladev's representation in Madhurya Leela is Ananga Manjari, the sister of Radharani. Radharani has a sister. And through Ananga Manjari, then Baladev has some participation as a gopi, servant of Radharani in Madhurya Ras. As Balaram, he never meets Radharani. Never. No. If he even sees the footprints of Radharani, he turns around and goes in the opposite direction. There should not be even an accidental meeting. Unless in the village everyone is gathered together, all are present. Baladev is also present. But when roaming the bowers of Govardhan during the course of the day's pastimes, no. If he sees Radharani's footprints, he goes the other direction. And when Balaram dances with the gopis, he is in, I don't know if the right word in English is, he is in the alter ego of Krishna. not himself. He is aloof from himself, and he is enjoying with the gopis only to offer that enjoyment to Krishna. He is like a phantom participant. He is actually aloof from the experience, and the enjoyment is going from Baladev to Krishna. He is not an enjoyer of the rasa dance.
So his gopis are not Hadlini Shakti.
No, his gopis, but he enters, the purports of this by the Goswamis are, he enters into a particular state where he himself is not the enjoyer of his rasa dance with his gopis. It may appear that he is, but everything he has transferred to Krishna. Like Guru. Guru, this was there for many years in ISKCON. What does Guru do with all these things you're offering? Well, the money he puts in his pocket. No. So, but it is being offered. Well, I didn't see him. He ate that cookie is what he did. Put the money in his pocket, ate the cookie, and that was. But internally, he must offer everything to his guru. Now, how does that happen? He's thinking, Namo Vishnu Padaya with a cookie before he eats it? Well, I can tell you by my personal experience, no. Not even by my experience of being guru in front of someone, but years before, just as a sannyasi, visiting Hindu families in India. They feed you. They feed you. You're a sannyasi. They're going to feed you, and they're going to feed you up to the neck. And there's no way to avoid that. Sometimes they'll make an offering. Sometimes they won't. They're just going to feed you. You see. So the whole experience internally, we are accepting it. A clear idea, not offering it up to Prabhupada. We're accepting it on his behalf. You see, we accept it on his behalf. In this way, Prabhupada sat on the Vyasasana, in his own Vyasasana, and he told, on behalf of my guru in Los Angeles, this is, I think, even in an old BTG article, he told, on behalf of my Guru Maharaj, I am accepting this. On my own qualification, I cannot accept this. But on behalf of my Guru Maharaj, I must accept this. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta explained these things elaborately. Why I'm sitting here on the throne in front of so many men. Why I am taking so much. I am doing all of this to honor my Guru Maharaj. I am accepting this honor on his behalf. Like the ambassador. He comes to our country, we honor him, we flatter him. What we've done, this man could lose his job next week. Doesn't matter, next ambassador, we honor him, we flatter him. We are honoring a country, a king, a queen, a president. The ambassador is the representative, you see. So, Guru is Krishna's ambassador. And a Guru feels himself also only the ambassador of his Guru. As Guru is ambassador of Krishna, in disciplic succession, any Guru is the ambassador of his Guru. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta used to say, I am only the monitor in the class. We are all students. We have all come here. You have come here to hear about Krishna. Your questions are glorious. It causes me to speak what I have learned from my Divine Master. In this way, you are engaging me in Krishna's service. We are all students of the absolute truth, but I am posted as the monitor. Remember monitor? And Srila Sridhar Maharaj told, this was painful for us to hear. That he is counting himself amongst us, students, but only the monitor. It was very intolerable. No, you are the master, not the student. You are the master. So the disciple will adjust like that. No, you are the master. But the Guru doesn't go, yeah, that's right, I'm the master. As soon as he says, oh, I'm the master, psh, gone down. Guru become Guru. Guru became a cow.
I think you also just mentioned, actually, when Prabhupada was approached by his disciples, 969, with the title Prabhupada, Prabhupada pondered it and said, yes, I will accept on behalf of my spiritual master that you're honoring me in this way. He said you had that mood.
No, it must be there.
Not qualified, but on behalf of my Guru.
So that is his feeling, and we will see, no, he is qualified. He is qualified. Yes, he is qualified. And part of that qualification is his own feeling about himself that I am not qualified. And that we have to remember. That is not a show of false humility. It is real. We have to learn that. Once I was having a discussion with a godbrother about Guru in Vrindavan, just outside of Ganga Prasad's, if you know Vrindavan, sitting on the sidewalk. It was just kind of a meeting. We met after some years. And I made this point. We were having, it was a short, brief, intense conversation. So it was a little, we weren't harmonized with each other. There was some tension there. Anyway, I made one point in the conversation. I said that in the Guru Tattva sees, the vision of Guru Tattva sees that the disciples are actually extensions of my Guru Maharaj. Just what I just described. They have come here with their questions. They have been sent by him. Their questions are to engage me in his service, to train them. It's like knitting. It's very complex, but it takes a shape in the end. So basically I said the Guru must see, I said the Guru sees his disciples as extensions or representatives of his own Guru. Do you follow me? Then he said, oh, that's a novel vision. I said, that's not a novel vision. If that's not the way you see, you're not situated in the Guru Tattva. It doesn't matter how many disciples you have. If that's not the way you see them, you shouldn't be Guru. That means you're just falsely going through the extracurricular of being Guru. Okay, maybe you shouldn't give up your disciples in being Guru, but then you should try to enter into what this is actually all about. Not the show of Guru, but the service of being Guru. It is a service. It's a service. Yeah.
Actually, it's on record, a famous letter of Prabhupada after his Guru. So he said anyway in this famous letter, it was circulated in the temples around 1973, that I'm accepting all of your love and service, and you are sent by my Guru Maharaj. I am accepting you as representatives of my Guru Maharaj. It's a very famous letter.
Yes, it's there in Prabhupada's. I've read those letters too. I've looked at that extensively. But it's not a novel thing, you see. It's like, if we look out into the yard and we see a deer standing out there, and I say, oh, there's a deer out there. And you turn around and go, yeah, it kind of looks like a deer. It's like, it don't look like a deer. It is a deer. And if you don't see the deer, well, then you don't have the right vision. There's something wrong. You're not seeing that. It's not like, it's not arbitrary. It's the way it is. It's what it is, as it is. So if we enter into the service of Guru, that should be our vision. And if it's not your vision, then you have to, get with the program and get down to the level where that becomes your vision. You see like that. These disciples, they don't belong to you. Just like Prabhupada said, your own children don't belong to you. In spiritual life, everything is sent by Krishna. They're sent to you and you train them and try to do the best you can. They're not yours. If the 3-year-old girl was here, well, where was she 6 years ago? Don't know. Might have been some lady that shouted at you on the street, get out of my way! Now she's 3. Where was she 6 years ago? Don't know. Not ours. Krishna sent them here. To what? Teach you a good lesson. Prabhupada said they have been sent here to be trained in Krishna consciousness. We're not the possessor of anything in this world. And the Guru is not the possessor. He's not possessed. He does not think possessively. However, this is not palatable for the disciple. No, Prabhupada, I'm not sent by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. I am not his extension. I'm a complete Maya, and you are my only saving grace. Still, that is his vision of us. When then our vision of our own self, what we are. What is that? What we are.
That possessiveness.
Forward a bit.
Yes, the possessiveness, yes. So, then the disciple, this is a little bit of a struggle for him. So he has to adjust that, you see. Then, one day, this thing happened in Prabhupada's life. I told this in Vancouver the other day. And Srila Prabhupada was sitting, he told us this story, and this story was passed around through the devotees. Prabhupada was sitting in a function where his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, was speaking. During the function, somebody tapped Prabhupada on the shoulder. He turned around just like this. Somebody taps you on the shoulder, you naturally turn around like this. Just at that point of Prabhupada having the back of his head towards Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta opened his eyes and saw the back of Prabhupada's head, and he stopped speaking. Prabhupada didn't say anything. The person who was going to talk just went and froze. So Prabhupada turned back around and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, "Would you like to address the devotees? Would you like to come here and speak? You have something to say." He was chastised by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Prabhupada said, "That was the most glorious moment of my life." So is that a stoic statement? You just take it on the chin, chastisement? What is the meaning of that? Srila Sridhar Maharaj told us. We were discussing this thing, and then he told, the confirmation that you are accepted by your guru is his chastisement. When he leaves that position and chastises you as his dependent and takes position, I am your guru, you listen to me, and chastise it, that is a confirmation. Yes, he cares. I am his. Otherwise, he's telling, you are a representative of my guru, you are sent by him, all these things. So where's the confirmation you're accepted? In spiritual life, where is the confirmation? The deeper confirmation is chastisement. Rupa Goswami writes a prayer on a piece of paper, revealing the inner mood of Mahaprabhu. And how does Mahaprabhu reciprocate that? He slaps his face. Chastisement. And everybody could, it's written in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He didn't beat him, but he gave a slap. He gave a slap. And Rupa Goswami very much relished that slap. What is the meaning of this slap? He has taken the position of my master and chastisement. So it comes as a great confirmation. So Prabhupada said, in most glorious moment of my life. Then there's a pastime in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Advaitacharya was senior to Mahaprabhu. Yet, and Mahaprabhu always offered him obeisances. Advaitacharya knows that Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, his most worshipful Lord. Yet that most worshipful Lord in the Leela is quite younger. He's 40-some years younger than Advaitacharya. So Mahaprabhu is always offering prayers and obeisances to Advaitacharya. So this became progressively more and more of a disturbance in the mind of Advaitacharya. Then Advaitacharya devised a plan. And he left Navadvip and he returned to Shantipur. And he opened up a school there and he started preaching that jnana was superior to bhakti. First get jnana, and then you'll get bhakti. So he opened a school, and we used to say he taught Mayavadi, but once when I was telling this story in Gaudiya Math, some devotees got all excited. Oh, Maharaj, not teach Mayavad. Not teaching Mayavad. Gyan. He's teaching Gyan, not Mayavad. I said, oh, okay. He was teaching Gyan. And then the news spread that Advaitacharya is preaching that first one needs Gyan, then Bhakti will come. Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu at that time jumped in the Ganges and swam to Shantipur. Immediately. And they got out of the water and they entered Advaitacharya's house. And Haridas Thakur, he happened to be there at that time also. And he was a guest in Advaitacharya's house. And they entered the room, and Mahaprabhu started going, he ran up to Advaitacharya and just started slapping him, right and left. First you call me here, and then you insult me with this gyan. And he started slapping him around head and shoulders, you see. And Nityananda Prabhu stood, and Haridas Thakur trembled in the corner. And then Advaitacharya's wife entered and started crying, don't kill the old man. Stop the beating. Don't kill the old man. And Advaitacharya was dancing. And then he told Mahaprabhu, Today I have defeated you. Today you have become my master. And he was dancing. He wasn't beating blood blows, but he was giving head and shoulders slap. Slap to the face. And Advaitacharya was dancing. Today I have defeated you, my lord. Today I have made you take the position. You are my master. Otherwise, how you can beat me? I am twice your age. I am the revered Pandit Advaitacharya. All revere me. You are beating me. I have defeated you. You have taken the position. You are my lord. You are master. It's not once. It's not twice. It's confirmed a zillion times, actually, in devotional dealings. Chastisement comes as a confirmation that there is actually a Lord above us. He accepts us. So, if Prabhupada chastises us, it is, if we are very, very neophyte, which mostly everyone was in dealing with Srila Prabhupada, that chastisement is very, very hard to understand, very, very hard. Sometimes that chastisement actually caused devotees to lose faith. They were chastised and they could not swallow the chastisement. I won't mention any names, but yes, there were a few. And they could never accept that Prabhupada chastised them, you see. So, once a friend of ours, a god brother, one day he was entering Prabhupada's room with Prabhupada, and downstairs in the Juhu backside of Prabhupada's room, in the old BBT buildings in the back. And there was a tulsi plant to the side. And Prabhupada stopped and looked at the tulsi. And the ants had attacked tulsi's roots. You see, the ants had moved in at the root level, and they're eating some juice out of the tulsi, and the tulsi was withering and was in a pretty pitiful looking condition. And Prabhupada stopped and saw the plant, and saw the devotee, his name is Shankarshan. We used to call him Shanky, Shankarshan. Shankarbrit? Shankarshan. He stepped up to Prabhupada's side and he said, "It's the ants, Srila Prabhupada." He was giving explanation why the tulsi is that way, assuming that Prabhupada is there. Srila Prabhupada turned to him and chastised, "Leave the ants alone. Do not bother the ants." He chastised very heavy. He was shocked. And he didn't stop just in one or two words. He stayed on this point. You cannot kill. Leave the ants alone. Later, he said he went to Prabhupada's room very humbly and said, "Prabhupada, is there anything we can do about the ants? They're eating the tulsi." Prabhupada said, "Yes, put kumkum, turmeric around the tulsi. They will go." So some heavy chastisement is given to that disciple. Shock, right? About a couple months later, he was the head pujari in the Hyderabad temple. And he went out to the farm to do some things for the weekend, just to have a break and see some devotees. There was a fight that day between some devotees, some bhaktas, some devotees from Bengal. There was a disturbance. And one foreign devotee, he chastised some Bengali bhakta severely, some chastisement. Might even gave him a slap, I don't know. But it was a bit of a scene. So then the night came and everything, and then Shankarshan arrived. I think Shankarshan was his name. He arrived, but it was already near sunset. So at the end of there was a long building of rooms. He got in a room at the end and threw out his mat, threw out his blanket, just to take rest. Well, in the night, a very horrible thing happened. That Bengali bhakta decided he was going to get his revenge on that foreign devotee who chastised him. So he went and got an axe. And, you know, Indian axes are really dull and they're very heavy. Nobody cuts the wood in half. They bludgeon it into two pieces, you know. So they got this big, fat, wide axe that was quite dull. And he went to the place where that devotee who had chastised him was sleeping. But his room was locked from the inside. So that Bengali person was very disturbed, and he went door to door, and all the doors were locked. And when he got to the end, the door pushed open, and there was a foreigner laying on a mat, sleeping. It was this Shankarshan. And he raised the axe and tried to cut off his head. And the axe came and hit him in the jaw. And he lost a few teeth and he got a broken jaw. And later the guy was caught and charged for attempted murder. And the whole thing, and I wasn't there when it happened, but it was a few months later. He was kind of all stitched up and he was telling me that story. And I was like, whew, gee, ooh, ooh. And then he also related the story of Prabhupada's chastisement. And I told him on the spot. The vision I got of that was, Prabhupada's chastisement to you saved your head. His words of chastisement purified some sins in you. And then the axe only fell on your jaw and cost you 3 teeth and a broken jaw. If he hadn't purified you with his chastisement, it might have cost you your life. You know? And it sounded pretty good to both of us at the time, you see. So, not only may that chastisement be a confirmation of his affection for us and accepting us as a disciple, it may be purifying for us. It may be an injection of purification to help us. We should learn that even if we are chastised for something we didn't do by our guru, we shouldn't make excuses. But, Prabhupada, I didn't, not me. No, not like that. We should accept that. Why you want to defend yourself in front of him? Whatever chastisement he gives, Prabhupada was not talking to the gentleman who had tapped him on the shoulder. He had just been tapped, so it is natural. He just turned around. He never said anything. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta may have been inappropriately chastising him. He did not have any conversation. He wasn't trying to talk, but he riveted him. Do you want to come here and sit here? Do you want to talk to the devotees? What you have to say is so important. He hadn't said anything. Srila Prabhupada didn't say, but. Then the whole thing would have been spoiled, you see. So even if we are inappropriately chastised by our guru, we should not try to defend ourselves. It is there, the necessity for chastisement. It is there within us. So it is 2 things. It is purifying, and it is a confirmation that he accepts the position as our master. And there are many examples of that, both in our time and before our time, and it will be in the future time also. So. Wait, 1 second. I think, was there a question that side? I saw a hand. No? Yes, Prabhu?
There is a large use of this word eagerness. So some devotee maybe they're very enthusiastic to hear Vasika Katha and
there are two types of eagerness. Utsayan Nischaya Diryat. Utsayan means enthusiasm. Loyam means it means eagerness, great eagerness. Actually, the word more than eagerness, greed, great greed. It does not say loyam nischaya diryat. It says utsayan nischaya diryat. Now, why? Utsayan, you must be enthusiasm. Utsayan nischaya, you must be patient. Diryat, you must be determined. Why patient? Because it will take some time. Why determined? Because you will stumble and fall along the way. Pick yourself up, and with enthusiasm, you move on. So, if with enthusiasm we may stumble, we may even fall, but enthusiasm must be there. And we will pick ourselves up and move ahead. When there is loyam, there's no nischayat, patience. You can't wait anymore. And there's no diryat, determination. You're not falling. You don't have any problem. You're not stumbling. Loyam is very rare. Spiritual greed is very, very rare. It is not an easy thing to acquire. But it will be acquired in time. And I have seen the life of practicing Paramahansas. And we saw Srila Prabhupada at an older age, but he showed us the life of a practicing Paramahansa. And in the last days of his life, he showed us his Paramahansa Bhav, just the way he felt about life, just the way he felt about Krishna, just the way he felt. He was humble like melted butter. Only a sweet desire to Govardhan, only a sweet affectionate love he wanted to express to his god brothers. Paramahansa Bhav. But prior to that, we saw a general on the battlefield commanding an army, a Sankirtan army, pushing the holy name into this material world, pushing back the Maya. It is called cutting the jungle, defeating the impersonalist, defeating the materialist. But in the last days, all of that was more or less, no, this is too strong. Anyway, more or less that subsided. So then I saw. Do you know the name of Krishnadas Babaji, the godbrother of Srila Prabhupada? Akinchan Krishnadas Babaji. Not to be confused with the other many Krishnadas Babajis, who was at Radhakund recently who passed away, not to be confused with him. But Akinchan Krishnadas Babaji was very affectionate with Srila Prabhupada. He used to come for many years. He would come and he would stay a few days at Mayapur at Prabhupada's temple. He generally stayed in the room with the sannyasis, and the reports are that he never slept. Whenever he came to visit Prabhupada, in the evening he would go to Achyutananda's room or where 2 or 3 sannyasis were staying, and he would get a place with them, but he wouldn't sleep. He'd just sit there all night and chant japa. And they wake up and they go to sleep 10:30. Babaji would have some chanting, and they wake up at 3 in the morning. He'd still some chanting. He'd just chant all night. And there were many instances of this. Once, when we were all in this kind of a, well, every emotion you could think of, but probably except the most spiritual emotions. There was anxiety, there was distress, there was concern and fear, just so many things surrounding Srila Prabhupada. And all of a sudden Babaji enters the room and jumps up on Prabhupada's bed like a little kid going to see his grandfather or something. It's like, and Prabhupada is laying there, and you know how the bed was wide, and he was over towards the center, not just over on the edge. And Babaji was small, and he just jumped right up there and had both of his legs crossed and just sat right there by Prabhupada's head. Haribol! Haribol! He's looking at Prabhupada. Haribol! Prabhupada opens his eyes, he goes, Jai Prabhupada! Jai Prabhupada! What is this? What's going on here? We're just all mournful over the external. And of course, we know Prabhupada is going to go, so it's just too much for us. And they're moving in another plane. Their godbrothers, many of their godbrothers are already gone. They're all ready to meet on the other side. Going means they're going to meet their Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, so many things. And he seemed like a very happy mood. And then he sang a bhajan and ended the song with singing Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. He wasn't singing Jai Prabhupada, our Prabhupada. He was singing Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada's Prabhupada. It was so nice. Later on, some years later, we got a call. Prabhupada was already gone from the world, and they wanted to borrow Prabhupada's car, and they wanted to take Babaji to Delhi for an operation. That was a little bit of a problem, and we went to this Methodist hospital where Babaji was there. And he was laying in a bed. He was propped up by a pillow. We sat there for about a half an hour. And just very as silent as you can have things in India. We were sitting there silently, and you could see his lips just going, and you could just catch the faintest sound sometimes. You just catch a murmur in his breath. He's laying there in his sleep, chanting, and then this nurse comes in, this Methodist nurse, and wakes him up and sticks this thing in his mouth and looks down his throat and sticks a thermometer in there and holds his pulse and everything. And we were just like, when she went away, we said, Babaji, it's very painful to see this nurse coming and just, she's not even a devotee, And he said, let her have some service. And let her have some service. We said, whoa. Let her have some service. And she wasn't a devotee. But let whatever she can do, let her do something. So then, actually, he withdrew. He recovered for some time, and then, with the blessings of his godbrothers, he withdrew to Nandagram, near Nandagram, and we never saw him again. And one day, don't know exactly the day, I don't remember, he left the world. And the devotees that were with him, He was sitting for a long time. They knew the time was getting near, and all of a sudden he sat up in Bengali and said, "Wait for me." And then he just laid back down, and he was gone. In Bengali, he just sat up quickly and said, "Wait for me." And then he just relaxed and laid back down. That was the description of his last moment. So, also, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, I was told by his lifetime servants that sometimes in their life of 45 years with him, that they used to argue with each other who was going to take Guru Maharaj the prasadam. And the argument would go like this: I took it to him last time, you take it this time. And I said, why is that? He said, because his mood was so intense. And if we did anything wrong, it was like, whew, it was just so heavy, you know. And but by the time we all got there, all we saw was Paramahansa Bhav. Just the total meltdown. The meltdown of the heart. Although one day somebody made the offering late by a half an hour. And all of a sudden what it was is his clock went off. He had one of these dong, dong, dong on every hour. You know, dong, 1 o'clock, midnight, 2 in the morning, dong, dong, 2. You know, one of those clocks that rings like that. So the clock goes off at the midday, and there are no temple bells. There's no offering. So he knows the time has come for the offering. 30 minutes later, ding, 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 the Pujari bells. He hears the bells. He calls his servants, and he asks them, why is the offering late? And they said, well, nobody cleaned the pots from the previous offering, so they had this system that the cleaners don't enter the kitchen. The pots are pushed by the kitchen door. The cleaners come and take the pots from there and they clean them. A cleaner, hired cleaner, cannot enter the Lord's kitchen, you see. So the cooks forgot to put the pots by the door, so the cleaners came and pots weren't by the door, so they just went home. Cooks came in to cook, and the pots were still dirty, so then they had to clean the pots. The whole thing got behind, and he became furious. He was nearly 88 years old, and he became furious. He became angry, and he told all the disciples, get out of this ashram. You're all useless. Go away. I don't want any disciples. All go from this place. So at that time, they just started ducking out. 2 went under the bed. He was almost blind. 2 went under the bed. You see, where did they go? Gone. Another one ran this way. And then he got up to clear the ashram. And he started down the stairs. He would only come down 2 days a year. He started down the stairs. Usually he would have helpers. This time everybody was running. He had his cane. And he started down and he was telling in Bengali, go! Go from this ashram. You are not fit to serve. Go, go. And there was the wife of one devotee from Canada was there. I forget, Anuradha was her name. And she jumped behind a pillar. And he saw this shadow. So he raised his cane and he goes, who is that? Who is that? Asked in Bengali. Who is that? Who is that? And Anuradha came, Anuradha. She just eked out, Anuradha. And he goes, And he started going elsewhere. As he knew, she can't take the heat. She's too new for this, you know. So after he cleared the ashram, everybody hid, you see. Then he went back up and sat down on his seat. And then one by one, they all came out. One by one. One by one, they came back to be accepted in the grace. And each one a lecture. This is not a casual thing we were doing, serving the deity, serving Radha and Krishna. We were doing this. I wasn't told the whole lecture, but he spent much time on this point. Such a serious thing, you see. Oh, but generally, we see in the older devotees, senior devotees, only this Paramahansa Bhav, you see. And we don't see them in their rigorous practicing life. How you have seen Prabhupada in his rigorous practicing life? No. You saw him in his rigorous preaching life, but you didn't see him when he was 40 years old, and the schedule he had, and what he did, and all these things, you see. There is the practicing life of the Paramahansas also. And we might not regard that as so sweet at that time, you see. And they're in the rigors of the serving life. They're serving their spiritual master, and they may take great exception to a blunder on our part, you see. Not because it's inconveniencing to them, but because it's inconveniencing to their guru, whom they are serving. So, But once again, mainly the devotees have come in touch with the senior Vaishnavas only in their most senior years. Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj is another example of that. The devotees began to know him from the West when he was already about 96 years old. 97 up to 103 years old, you see. Again, he was showing mostly that what's called Paramahansa Bhav, you see. And many of the things of the practicing rigorous life that was not seen. I came to his room many times. I heard him speak many times. We have a video with us called The Qualification to Hear Ras Katha. And the sum and the substance of it is it has subtitles. You can see it. It's called the Riot Act. First deserve, then desire. There are no shortcuts to Rasa Leela. And he is one of the last living disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta who had friendship, affection of Prabhupada, and is worth our giving attention to. And he called this other group a mob and a gang. He said, there is a mob. And we know who he was talking about. There is a mob, a gang that has appeared in the Western countries. And what they say is not false. These things, this is his very words. What they say is not false. It is there in the writings of Vishwanath and 6 Goswamis. But preaching means nam prachar. Preaching about the holy name. You will enter all these things through the holy name, not through direct connection to the Leela, through the holy name. So he didn't say it once. He said it 100 times. And sometimes this group was, when personally mentioned, he would say here and there, shut the door, close the door. He did not want to be misrepresented, and he did not want to criticize others, but he would emphasize the teachings of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur are the standard which must be followed. And where we find that the standard is some novel creation, then don't go there. Don't go there. So that was the thing.
By reading those nice essays you wrote, you also made the statement, which I tend to agree with, that whatever Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave, that holds precedence over all the other previous acharyas.
It is a proper adjustment. It was adjusted then. Baladev Bijabhushan, he wasn't running all over the place talking Rasa Leela. He's a direct disciple of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. How to yes, it sometimes manifests. It sometimes shows itself, you see. Well, someone will say, well, they are doing. No, this is not a scheduled theatrical performance. The program begins at 8, the Harikatha ends at 10. That is not the Rasa Katha. It comes down at any time, day or night, 24 hours a day. It lasts for sometimes weeks on end. Doesn't stop. Doesn't run according to a clock. It is, Srila Puri Maharaj says, it is not. I don't know if we could get the end of it. Plus, they think they have seen ecstasy. They have seen tears. Basically, I have to say they haven't seen anything yet. I have seen on some rare occasion. In Srila Prabhupada, it was almost undetectable. He would check himself to such a degree that almost great symptoms of ecstatic love of Krishna were not present in the terms of shaking, trembling, faltering the voice. A few times these things just kind of like came up like a rumbling volcano and went back down. And that alone would just leave everybody breathless, absolutely breathless. Not running around like little kids in a candy shop, as it's recently been posted on the internet, and all great old devotees were running around like kids in a candy shop. We didn't become like kids in a candy shop after receiving it. We became like deep, dark clouds of gravity, sobriety, and seriousness. Not giddy little kids running around in a candy shop. That's not proof. That is not what happens when you come in contact with somebody in that plane of realization.
May I relate?
Yeah, sure, sorry.
This was in late July 1975. Prabhupada had come to Chicago, especially to meet the Radha Damodar party.
Oh, yeah.
90 bhaktas,
Right.
5 buses,
Right.
100 other devotees. We packed that temple room. Prabhupada installed the deities. Anyway, and one of the morning programs, just Prabhupada was chanting Jai Radha Madhava for the morning class. And just halfway through the Jai Radha Madhava, he went still. And you could detect not only his deep absorption, but he was a little bit, in transcendental samadhi. And the whole room, 100 plus devotees went, you could hear a pin drop. Because the energy coming from Prabhupada was so awesome, it was so beautiful. And it was so transcendental.
So it is a rare
lasted
experience.
1 minute, and then Prabhupada came out and he said, Chant Hare Krishna. And then we had a little kirtan and put it back into the right plane, and then he gave class after that.
And what did he give class about?
Well, actually, one other incident that happened the following morning, I don't recall the exact class, I'm sorry. But the next morning, there was chanting after the deity greeting. Prabhupada was on the Vyasa-san, and all the devotees were dancing. Then Sudam Swami, he had the danda, and he was making all sorts of, because he's very flamboyant, he is a dancer and all these things. So he decided to dance with his danda and swing it around, and he was at the very front. So all the devotees started following him, and running back and forth across the room. And Prabhupada shouted from the Vyasa-san. He said, "Stop! I have not taught you this." He said, "I have taught you how to dance for Krishna's pleasure." You could see it was getting out of hand.
Sure.
Wild. Anyway,
And what to speak of now?
that's not worthy.
Just recently, there's a devotee that went down to Badger. They're trying to recruit people here, as you know. And so he did go, but he didn't buy into it. But he made an interesting comment to me that something that turned him off, basically. He said there was two incidences where people, their devotees or followers of they would show, this is a picture, see, this is his original Sarup.
Oh yeah, the picture that Jadharani.
Familiar with that?
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with it all.
Yeah, that's
Actually.
was something.
Unless it just came out yesterday.
Yeah, I just heard it myself. And anyway, then it was like, I guess, a painting or pictures, like in a card or something, but telling who he is, and they're all excited, like you said, like children out of a candy shop. Anyway, he had enough intelligence to look at this and wasn't at all amused.
I said, I know her. Isn't that Parikshit's daughter? No, you didn't get the humor of it. We used to identify Parikshit and others would do the paintings of the gopis, and you'd recognize the kids in L.A. because they would pose for the pictures. So, those type of those type of things.
Takes devotee faces and puts it.
Went down to the back.
No.
We know those things, but one time Srila Puri Maharaj said, I know Keshav Maharaj. Just like we have heard, they know Prabhupada, he knows Prabhupada better than we do, right? So what's good for John's good for Paul. Srila Puri Maharaj said, I know Keshav Maharaj for 70 years, and I found none of this in him. Where did he get these things? And the answer is, from the Babas at Govardhan, where he lived for 2 years. After leaving his guru, he blooped, and he went out. He could not tolerate chastisement from his guru, and he went out and lived with the Babas for 2 years. Keshav Maharaj brought him back. And that's where these things are learned. These things were not learned by Keshav Maharaj. Keshav Maharaj was so strict that he would never even refer to Kinchan Krishnadas Babaji as Babaji Maharaj. He would never refer to him as Babaji Maharaj. He only referred to him by his brahmachari name. I forget what that was. Because he took Babaji initiation from a photo of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. Babaji initiation is there in Gaudiya Math. I don't know. Madhav Maharaj? How many Babajis does Saraswati Thakur have? Do you know?
I heard two numbers. I heard once a dozen, 12 or 13, and then I heard once only like 5 or 6.
Yeah. We're not clear. Prabhupada, 2. Srila Prabhupada had 2 Babajis. He gave Babaji initiation to 2. We're not against the Babajis. Babaji is also a plane of renunciation, but it's for those who are not inclined or up to the ability to preach. Preaching does require a little extroverted personality a little bit. Sometimes that is very difficult for some people. And so Babaji is there, has always been there in our line. It's been there. And I think, Sarah, how many Babajis Srila Puri Maharaj have? 30 or so? About 30 Babajis. and 127 sannyasis. You know. They all have the same mantras, but our daily duties are different. That's all. The Babaji will only sit on the floor. You won't put him in this chair. The sannyasi has some pratishta for preaching, a seat for preaching. So you can't get Kinchan Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj came to my room once, was serving Krishna Balaram Mahaprasadam in my room, and I had arranged a nice red cushion, you know, just a nice cushion, big cushion like these, bigger than this, red velvet. And we had a little choki, and his plate was there, and Mahaprasad of Krishna Balaram in the evening. And we got him into my room in the Gurukul, and he saw that seat and just started to laugh. No, Maharaj, please, Babaji. No. He would not sit on it. He sat on the floor and asked the prasadam be put there next to him. No pratishta. Babaji, no pratishta. No special honor, no anything. But you're a senior Vaishnava. No. He's sticking to his guns. Huh? No anything extra. So, but anyway, there are bona fide Babajis. Huh? One time a godbrother became upset with me. He had given up sannyas and he had become a Babaji, and he'd gone to the Babajis at Radhakund, which is the kind of the lower end of the Babaji section. Very learned, but morally very corrupt. And we were having a bit of an argument. And he said, "Are you so foolish that you don't understand that Rup Sanatan were Babajis? They were not sannyasis, they were Babajis." I said, "Yeah, they were Babajis, but they weren't Sahajis." So we're not against the Babajis. We're against the Sahajiyas, the imitation-ist. No, that was someone else. You didn't know him. He actually was a disciple of Srila Sri Maharaj. Yes.
Yes, I wanted to ask if you would address this question. A young sannyasi who visited our temple recently made the statement that we were more or less remiss since Srila Prabhupada left, those of us who did not take a living guru. That, I'm trying to paraphrase how he expressed it, that we were not qualified enough to take the instruction or the Vani of our Guru Maharaj, and that we needed the living example of another Paramahansa Guru, self-realized Guru, in order to properly follow our own Guru.
Who was he talking to?
Us, all of us.
He was an exhibitionist, dancing in a hard metal band. I know who made him a devotee in England. When you were still on the stage dancing like a monkey, huh? in your briefs, huh? And you come to chastise these people and tell them what is their guru? What is the relationship with their guru? Fool and a rascal. Fool and a rascal. It doesn't even require a big philosophical explanation. Doesn't know how to approach a senior personality in Guru Varga. And we will remind him someday, what guru are you going to now when your guru's not here? Should be interesting. Will you be at Radhakund? Govardhan? Where will you go now? He will become a victim of his own medicine. Oh, or will you be the Rasic Guru? We'll have to wait and see. It will take time. The sun moves slowly through the sky, but it nonetheless moves through the sky. So their fateful day is coming when they will become the victim of their own medicine. So it's unfortunate that people who claim to be the benefactors of the Vaishnava world come with such a mentality. It's really sad to see that. I have seen people not less than 1,000 times superior than that person, and they're 10,000 times more humble. Arrogance, this type of arrogance, is not the qualification of a senior Vaishnava. And what they say is not true. Otherwise, we would say, and your Guru Maharaj? Oh, when his Guru Maharaj left, Did he go to the Rasika Guru? Where did he go? Then, and then the question is, where will you go? So it is wrong to say you must, you must, you must. That is wrong. I have, in my little mission in India and Vermont, some God brothers and God sisters. And yes, they accept me as their Shiksha Guru. That is not wrong. They are Prabhupada's disciples. And they accept me as their Shiksha Guru. And we have been together a long time. So you can't just put out a blanket statement, no disciple of Prabhupada can have a Shiksha Guru. Or if he has a Shiksha Guru, he only has to be in ISKCON. This is a problem. The Shiksha and Guru have no limitation according to social barriers. Maybe, may not be. Nice if he was, but that's not the rule. There is no such rule. We just can't make these things up as we go along, you see. But then to just come to somebody and say, even Prabhupada said, who needs a guru? You remember? Then they said, everybody, Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, no. Why everybody? Only those who are sincere to know about Krishna, they need guru. So that is also applicable. Everyone must have a Shiksha Guru. Why? Why you need? What is the necessity? Oh, you have no necessity, then you don't need. If you feel you have a necessity, then yes, you can accept, and that is not a violation of your chastity to your guru. That is not a violation. When you find Shiksha Guru, you find your guru is living there in the Shiksha of that personality. You feel that the arrangement, that you've come in his connection, is due to Prabhupada's arrangement. You don't find it as something different, you see. But then suddenly, you see differences. There are differences. There are no two living entities made alike. They're all different. Everyone has a uniqueness in their character and a unique approach to their devotion. At least, as you say, in the end, everyone has a unique offering to make to Krishna. No two things alike, all individual. He is a supreme individual, and we are all individuals. And there is something about us which is very relishable to Krishna in our service connection. Some special trait in every living entity, some speciality that he will draw out the taste. So suddenly you see between your guru and your Shiksha Guru, yeah, there are some difference. There may be difference of style. There may be even difference of instruction. Therefore, once Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, not just everybody can have two gurus. He said, one runs the risk of going to hell. Now, Srila Sridhar Maharaj is my Shiksha Guru, and I heard this, who has two gurus, but who cannot harmonize the difference, who cannot keep the balance, runs the risk of going to hell. So that was like a message. This is a very serious thing you enter into when you accept this Shiksha Guru. Just like one time Srila Sridhar Maharaj, someone mentioned Govardhan mentioned the worship of Shaligram. Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, are you missing any limbs? Because Shaligram is Vaidhi Marg, rules and regulations. Govardhan is Raga Marg, and very generous, Govardhan. But Shaligram requires very astute attention must be given. No room for wavering. Very, very strict. So he was emphasizing that. Missing any limbs? Limbs means arms. Lost any fingers? So if you're going to worship Shaligram, you must be very strict. You should always be strict, but there is less space there for error. It should be done ever so very nicely, you see. But in Govardhan, it is based more on raga, spontaneity, not on vaidhi, not on rules, just on pure spontaneity. Actually, without pure spontaneity, you can't worship Govardhan. Govardhan is only thrives. Govardhan only thrives on spontaneous love. Rules, argya, all the different things in arts and this is not for Govardhan. He wants ladu, kheer, sweet rice, not all these types of fancy things. He depends on sweetness, ragamard, sweetness of love. He was told by Mahaprabhu, worship with tulsi leaf and gunjamala. Gunjamala is actually a red and basically red, white, and black bead that grows inside thorny bushes in Vrindavan. This creeper takes shelter inside these. Well, that's the only place you find it because the goats eat it everywhere else. So it ends up, looks like it only grows there. It grows in any place, but it gets eaten. Where it survives is inside some thorny bushes where the goats can't get at it. So in the Krishna pastimes, Radharani and her friends harvest this bead, and they make earrings, they make neck bracelets, chokers, and ankle, all types of ornaments they make, and these are sometimes decorating Krishna. This bead is considered to be the representation of Radharani. Is there one here? No. And this bead is considered to be the representation of Radharani, and Mahaprabhu instructed Raghunath Das Goswami to worship Govardhan with this Gunjamala. So Govardhan, Raghunath Das then realized, Mahaprabhu has given me my place of eternal residence. It is by the side of Govardhan. It is actually the fact. When the fine and fancy day comes for going there in the eternal world, you have your cabin in Govardhan. The eternal place of residence of the Gaudiyas is Govardhan Hill. And then he realized by the Gunjamala he has given service to the divine couple under the shelter of Srimati Radharani at Radhakund. His residence in Govardhan and his service at Radhakund. This is represented by Govardhan and Gunjamala. Then later Swarup Damodar told him, some sweet you may offer also. Mahaprabhu told him tulsi leaf and Gunjamala. Then after some time, Damodar Swarup told him, some sweet you can arrange for some sweet for Govardhan. So these three things, tulsi, Gunjamala, and sweets. Govardhan is thriving on these things, you see. And it so happens that those beads are deadly poison. There's an international ban against those beads. It was imposed in 1910 or something like that. As far as I know, it still stands. When stringing one of those beads and the needle passes through the bead, if it passes and pokes your finger, that is sufficient to cause death. Deadly poison. But when boiled in milk, it's a sabji. So it's a fine line there. But there are several places in Vrindavan that have Gunjamala. And once when I was buying Gunjamala for the deities, the man at the shop told me, hey, Maharaj, just remember, no eating. I said, no, I'm using only for puja, not for eating. But no eating prasad, poison, dying. He was telling me dying. And what had happened in Hawaii, the reason I was buying Gunjamala, they're hard. When they dry, they're as hard as a rock, you see. And the deity's Gunjamala broke. So that day was a Sunday program. We're having a big fruit salad at the Sunday program along with everything else. So I pulled the beads off the string. And I thought, well, it's Mahaprasad of Govardhan. I'll just throw these beads into the fruit salad. There was enough beads to have killed us all. And then I thought, no, but they're hard. Somebody might break a tooth. Okay. So I walked outside and touched them in my head and threw them under the rose bushes in Hawaii at our house, at our preaching center. And then things went on very nice. And then I went there to Vrindavan. It was Krishna's arrangement, huh? And I went to buy more, and that man, oh, Maharaj, don't eat. I'm not eating, Prabhu. It's for puja. No, don't eat. Not Mahaprasad. Poison. Dying. And then I realized, oh my God. I did some research back in Hawaii. They grow wild in Hawaii, and they're in the Hawaii Book of Poisonous Plants. There's a picture of them and everything. They're deadly poison. So that represents Radharani. So what is the connection there? Don't try to enjoy in that plane of her domain. It is deadly poison. You will do nothing but harm to yourself. Try to be a servant there, but don't enter there in the wrong way. You deal with this in this way, it is the supreme way of worshiping Govardhan. You deal with this inappropriately, it may cause death. So I thought, there's some lesson there. The highest reality is the supreme destination. We should know what it is. We should revere it. We should worship that plane. But we should not force entrance to that plane if we are not qualified. And people say the qualification is you have to hear from a Rasik Acharya. That's half the qualification. The other qualification is you have to be fit to hear even from the Rasik Acharya. So we don't fault another's guru necessarily. But when pushed, you may say, Prabhu, I am not fit for that. No, you are fit. Thank you for the flattery. But I am not fit for that. No, I know you are fit. No, but Prabhu, personalities greater than you have told me I am not fit for that plane. And I follow my gurus. So you follow your gurus and have a nice day. Then the real crux of the issue comes out. They're not satisfied with that. And this is a glaring defect. They're not satisfied that you follow your guru. They want you to follow their guru. Ami Guru, Jagat Guru. And in the end, the emphasis is not on guru, it's on Ami, my guru is the best. The emphasis isn't guru is the best, the emphasis is my guru is the best. They haven't even crossed the most fundamental layer of the ego consciousness. They have not crossed that. They are not well-wishers. They are not benevolent. They are not magnanimous. They are insulting, indignant, all the things that we find unpleasant. They are not the things which we find in the liberated souls. Those liberated souls, they are the proprietors of that thing, love of Krishna. They are proprietors of that. They have power to melt stone. They have power to fly in the sky. So many powers Krishna has given them. Why they don't simply give us? Because it would be like water off a duck's back anyway. Some qualification required to receive even what they want to give us. So they give us the process to become qualified. Recently, some years back, a GBC came into our room at Mayapur. We were there. We were invited for this meeting that I was telling you about earlier to discuss myself and Tripurari Maharaj and the devotees in our community to, rejoin ISKCON. So, anyway, that was a fiasco. But in the course of it, it was the year that the GBC came down like a ton of bricks on top of the Rasik thing, 1994. So at a point, we were observing what was going on, so we called, there was one GBC came by our door and we said, psst, psst, Prabhu, please come in, have a seat. We sat him down, just for the sake of embarrassment. I don't mention who this person is, but let's say he's closer than 300 miles from here. So he came in the room and he sat down, and Tripurari Maharaj, who's a very good actor, if you happen to know Tripurari Maharaj, he could have probably been in Hollywood, he's a great actor. So he said, we heard that there's some Sahajiism going around the movement. I mean, is this for real? And that devotee said, yep. He said, well, like, what is it? He said, well, we have tapes. We've listened to tapes, and it's quite evident from the tapes. It's Sahajiya. We said, really? Well, like, what is it? And he goes, well, there are a lot of things. He said, then, but really the main thing is that he says that the real reason that Lord Chaitanya came to this world was to experience some kind of like, some love or something of Radharani. And the secondary reason that he came was the Sankirtan movement. And we said, no, is that what he said? And he went, yep, that's what he said. And I had to leave the room. I almost bit a hole in my jaw to keep from laughing. The whole fourth chapter of Adi Leela, Chaitanya Charitamrita, is the descent of Mahaprabhu to relish the moods of Srimati Radharani. And Prabhupada says it in there 6 times. Sankirtan is his secondary purpose, not the Lord's primary purpose. Remember, he is the supreme enjoyer. What he does is for himself, and saving us is a matter of fact after that. We're not the central focus of the Lord. He is his own central focus, his enjoyment. He comes to relish her moods of love, devotion, and ecstasy. And in the course of that, he also performs the Sankirtan. What he does is he does the Sankirtan movement first, and then the last 12 years of Mahaprabhu's life is for his own purpose. And he separates himself at that time from the general community of devotees and lives in an isolated state with only a few of his dearmost servants. And what is experienced by Mahaprabhu is called Mahabhav. And only a small drop of that experience is told to us. But it is pointed out here that when he came in touch with Krishna Lila, he fainted, he fell to the ground, his joints dislocated by 6 inches, he perspired blood, he stopped breathing even. When he fainted in ecstasy in Ratha Yatra, Nityananda Prabhu dived to catch his head from smashing off the road. Not that he just comfortably laid down or sat there in the kirtan weeping and all these things. Not like that. Very, very intense. He came in connection with that Leela. So, do we see all these things? They're coming in connection with the Leela. Do we see all these things? No. We see only acting like little kids in a candy shop. Sorry, that's not one of the symptoms of coming in touch with the eternal Leela of Krishna, that you begin to act like an adolescent. No, this is not the standard. There is standard. So the thing should meet this standard.
All right, I was just going to ask that question, the relationship between Sankirtan and the inner Leela, or the inner tasting of Radha Bhava. Yet Prabhupada writes in the purport that the goal, the process of attaining the spiritual perfection is Sankirtan, the Yuga Dharma. That is.
Yes, the Yuga Dharma is connected to the Prema Dharma. Yuga Dharma, Prema Dharma, the holy name is never abandoned. Yeah. Most of the Sahajiya groups, they give up the holy name at a time. The bona fide Sahajiya groups don't give up the holy name, they include the holy name. Well, what does that mean, the bona fide Sahajiya groups? That means those who also do the bona fide process, but also mix in inappropriate practices or activities. The bona fide Sahajiyas, the Paramahansa Sahajiyas, those who have been at the practice for a lifetime. So, the Yuga Dharma, when it is given in this age by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it contains within it Prema Dharma. And it is his pastimes, not just of the Vaikuntha plane, but of the Goloka also. And the residents of Goloka, they come to this world, Golokera Premadan, Harinam Sankirtan, to present the Sankirtan, the residents of Goloka. They also come down with the Lord and the holy name. So through that holy name, both the Yuga Dharma and the Prema Dharma are affected. In other ages, only the Yuga Dharma is affected, and that gives up to Mukti and Vaikuntha Ras. It does not give Braja Ras. Braja Ras only comes from the holy name. And that holy name should be chanted in the company of pure devotees. It should be received from the pure devotees. And it should be chanted in their company. So this thing they tell also. This thing they tell. And then they put you in a bind. You won't admit that anyone is a pure devotee to Prabhupada. But Prabhupada, and they will admit, no, our Guru is pure devotee who come and chant with him. You see, they use this as a sort of a bind. So I don't say it as a defect within you, but it's not the way I see the world. That there was only one pure devotee. There will never be any other pure devotee. I don't see the world like that. I can't. It wasn't my experience. Srila Prabhupada says it is an offense to compare in this way. It's there in Chaitanya Charitamrita, first volume. Don't try to compare Diksha and Shiksha Guru. Don't try to compare the Vaishnavas, which one is superior and higher than the next. All of this is an aparad. So, but some comparison we have to make before we accept any senior authority, and and that we have to be true to our creed. We cannot adapt another person's creed, and that's probably what we're seeing here to a certain extent. Is many of these people, they don't have that realization. They're adopting someone else's creed, and later they'll give it up because it's not their creed. It's not what they actually believe. It's something that they've been swept up into. Others will stick with it all the way to the very end, and maybe there will be a trail of it 2 centuries from now. Maybe. There's trails of so many other things. Well, I saw Srila Sridhar Maharaj talk about some of these things. We get all excited, but he was just saying, many deviations are there. Rasvichar, Smarnam, many deviation. It's like, how can they be so complacent about this? It's just like, if I've got this tape recorder, let's say it's a bar of 24 karat gold, and you're holding a brick from the construction site, and you're shouting, it's gold, it's gold, it's gold. It's like, I got my gold. It's right here, it's real. It's just like, there's this inner satisfaction that doesn't even allow me to get excited with you. You're ranting and raving about your clay brick, but I've already got my gold brick. You see, you're saying it's gold. Well, I see it, and I'm not so impressed with it. What I'm trying to say is just make an example. There's so much self-satisfaction when you have the real thing that it is not that alarming. These things are there. Misrepresentation. They will go the way of misrepresentation. You go the way of the real thing. Cultivate what you know to be the real thing. Be true to your creed. Don't be a hypocrite. And that is a greater proof. That is a greater proof. Just like, the word around the grapevine was, they tried so hard to convert Mother Jamuna. Let there be another trophy on the shelf. But she didn't jump in the bandwagon, you see. So then you will see the love now. The blind eye of the eagle will be in your face. They won't even care to see your face or speak your name, you see. But, Mata, Jamuna, everything all lovey-dovey, and you stood your ground and they go like this and they'll be gone. Oh, maybe they'll try a few more attacks or whatever, Drops of water wear away the stones sometimes. They may try that approach also. But that is the biggest return comment that you can make, is just to keep your own ground, so to speak. But because you do, that might not influence anybody else. There's a lot of talk going around. There's a lot of words in the air, and this is not a game we are playing, but it's getting a little competitive, as it seems. It's just like, just to chant Hare Krishna and have a standard class, that isn't sufficient anymore. It's like you have to push deeper. You have to push deeper. And it's not a bad thing for you to push deeper either. But if you're not inclined, then you be comfortable with your own affection that you have for Prabhupada in your heart, your own affection for your guru, if you're the disciple of another guru or something, and you're happy with that and you do your service, you see. But if you want to say something, then, well, you're going to have to penetrate a little bit and give explanation. As I said earlier, I feel that a deeper sense of divinity about the simplest things that we do, that is a key to our showing them that Prabhupada did indeed give everything he intended to give. There's no lacking in his teaching. There may be a lacking in any individual in coming to the standard requirement of his teaching. But there is no lacking in his teaching. I cannot admit to this. Srila Sridhar Maharaj said Prabhupada was a Shaktavesh avatar. Lord Nityananda Prabhu entered his heart and lived in his body for 12 years. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu himself ran this movement. So how is it that he couldn't tell us something? He couldn't do something for us. There's something he couldn't give us. Lord Nityananda Prabhu himself entered into Prabhupada. This was his way of describing empowered preacher, empowered by Nityananda Prabhu. Empowered. He said, what he did is humanly impossible. Even a Vaishnava can't do that. Only an empowered Vaishnava. And empowered by what? The Brahma Jyoti? Empowered by who? Nityananda Prabhu is in charge of expanding the Lord's Leela. Empowered by Nityananda Prabhu. This is possible. He did this. You never hear this from them. You'll never hear them say that Prabhupada is Shaktivesa, because then this defeats this whole patter about Prabhupada couldn't give you something or he didn't give you something. It loses speed when you show, or it is admitted, that Prabhupada is Shaktivesa avatar. You see? You never hear that verse, Puja Ragapata Gaurava Bhangi. Actually, one day we did hear this verse. It came from them in a completely opposite meaning. They gave the complete opposite meaning and even lied as to say this was Srila Sridhar Maharaj's interpretation. They say one day they went and asked Srila Sridhar Maharaj about Raganuga Bhakti, and he quoted Puja Ragapata Gaurava Bhangi, and then they give a translation which means absorb yourself in the Raga Marg, always discussing the Leela of Krishna. Never, ever did Srila Sridhar Maharaj say that. Ever. Not once in his life. And if you don't believe it, look at the articles and the things that we've printed and how he quotes this verse and what he says it means and how he goes on to emphasize. Always a little distant and below. Do not rush towards the Lord's domain of his divine pastimes. Keep your place. Keep your place. Think of yourself as unfit. It is your greatest wealth. Keep cultivating that. It might be a little bitter in the beginning. We don't see how it fits because it really hasn't entered. When it really enters the heart, we are unfit, we are unqualified. I am the lowest of the low, not the high of the high, the low of the low. Then in that feeling, there is a sweetness that cannot be achieved through any dominance in this world of greatness. The dominance of greatness is all false. It's all false. We're not Purushas, we're Prakritis. We're little energies, 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. Small, small, little serving units of consciousness, meant to serve, meant to serve. We're dependent on Krishna. So don't think yourself the master, don't think yourself the achiever, or any of these things. Think of yourself in a negative way. Now, if this is a seminar on self-improvement, and pitching more sales in the real estate industry, that's not the way to think. You got to march out there, I'm great, I'm glorious, I'm powerful, and all this assertive stuff. Yeah, and you'll be a great real estate salesman. Life after life after life. So this is absent in them. I wrote an article called Speck of Dust and posted it on VNN. Immediately they responded with, oh no, actually we should desire to become gopis. So you studied the gopis, you know so much about Ras, have you studied the gopis? They desire to become a speck of dust at the feet of Krishna. They desire such a position. Why you fault me for that? Then I wrote another article called His Last Instructions, which are all based on the last instructions of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And he says in those last instructions about 6 or 8 times, the supreme wealth, the supreme goal of life is to become a speck of dust at the followers of Sri Rupa Goswami. And he expresses that in different ways. And the meaning is that the most negligible point, the most negligible, small, minute achievement in the spiritual world will become our greatest wealth. It is a world of infinite beauty, infinite, not finite, not big, not even very big, infinite. What is that? Well, that's really big. No, it's even bigger than that. Big doesn't fit the infinite. It's infinite. Every atom is infinite. What to speak of the whole? How infinite is that? Even an atom in the infinite is infinite. What is the infinite? No, it's just a word in our vocabulary, that's all. It's a really big valley. It's a big sky. I mean, it's really big. We can't say big enough how big it is. And that isn't enough, because big just identifies something in the material world, that's all, relative to small. Infinite. It is... once devotees were talking with Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and they were trying to get out of him that nobody was qualified to be guru except him. That nobody in ISKCON was qualified, and none of the sannyasis that had come to him, who were Prabhupada's godbrothers, who had disciples, that they were. This one devotee from Brazil was trying his best. It's irritating even to watch the video. Just trying his best to just get that question line and just extract that answer, because he wanted to go back to Brazil with that answer, you see. Then he doesn't have to cooperate. He doesn't have to serve. He can just do his own thing. That's really what he did anyway in time. And at one point, it would look like Srila Sridhar Maharaj was almost cooperating with him. But cooperating, it means he was discussing the higher qualifications of guru, highest qualifications. Then when that devotee just made his last, move to get the clarified answer, Srila Sridhar Maharaj just changed his whole look, his whole face, and he said, I have given blessing. They are working in the field according to their capacity. I simply remind them, do not forget you are dealing with the infinite. Go forward, but remember you are dealing with the infinite. Very humble advice, you see. And he dropped this whole issue, qualified, unqualified. Just remember, go forward. Years later, we went to Srila Puri Maharaj and we said, some people are saying, it just never stops. After Srila Prabhupada, then many people said Srila Sridhar Maharaj is the only qualified person. Everybody just go to Srila Sridhar Maharaj. After Srila Sridhar Maharaj, many people said only Srila Puri Maharaj is qualified. Everybody should go there. We went and asked Srila Sridhar Maharaj. We went and asked Srila Puri Maharaj directly. If they would have turned and said, you're unfit for this work, you should surrender your disciples, we would have done it. Follow? Paramadredi Maharaj had 1,000 people to surrender. That wouldn't have been a big deal for me. A couple of these kids would have been off my list or something. But no, he didn't give that type of direction at all. He did not. He said, it is your duty to carry forth what you have received from your Guru Maharaj and give that to the best of your capacity. Be sincere. Be sincere. This came again and again and again. Be sincere. If somebody says only the Paramahansa will be Guru, no one will be Guru. That's a fact. Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, actually the Uttamadhikari is never Guru. He's never Guru. He comes down to the Madhyam platform to be Guru. How else he becomes Guru? Because a Madhyam feels that everyone is superior to himself. He lives in that plane. Everyone is superior to me. He does not even discriminate. He sees Krishna everywhere and everyone's in Krishna's service. So how can he tell you to get out of Maya? That is a vision of the Uttam. Then the Madhyamadhikari, he makes discrimination. This is Maya. This is Krishna. The life of discrimination. That is a preacher, and that is where the Guru is situated. Then in the last part of their life, they may show us Uttam Bhav. They may go and they may manifest that. So either you came up to the Madhyam platform or you came down to the Madhyam platform. Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, Madhyam is the work of the Guru. Madhyamadhikari. So if they say you need Uttamadhikari, there's another thing. What is an Uttamadhikari? Ultimately, your faith tells you what that is. Well, you read what the scripture says, and then I could say, okay, what do you want me to do? Cut flesh off from my arm in a big chunk without winching a tear and throw it in a fire? Well, what do you expect out of somebody? Living a life of a sannyasi, preaching every day, doing all these things for a whole life, for 25 years. What is your... No, Prabhupada was a pure devotee. Well, what's that? He had a family, he had children. No, what does it mean? Actually, what you're saying is, your faith tells you this, but you don't have faith in anybody else. That doesn't mean nobody else is pure, nobody else loves Krishna. It just means that is not revealed to us. There are minimum standards, and people who do not meet those minimum standards should not be sought as any shelter, you see. Should not be sought as any shelter. Otherwise it becomes a cheating business. And it is often said that nishta, guru nishta, is the minimum qualification. The minimal qualification is firm faith in your guru. Those who have guru nishta, they may also carry on. They may carry on their branch of the line. But if they are not firmly situated in great faith in their spiritual master, then they should not make that attempt. They should not take the calling of that service. So the thing is, years ago there was many arguments going on. Is Guru relative or absolute? My friend Bir Krishna Maharaj, he was really having it out with this. Guru is absolute. And I told him, yeah, I'm sure when your mother comes in and sees you, she goes, oh, Gurudev. And she sees her son, you see. And I look at you, I see my God brother. Your disciple looks at you, he sees his guru. And Prabhupada looks at you, he sees his disciple. So are you absolute? No, you're relative. In fact, you're the son of your mother. That's what type of relative you are. So guru is not absolute. The disciple sees the guru as absolute, but his position is relative, actually. His godbrother sees him as a godbrother. His mother sees him as a son. His sister sees him as a brother. Yeah? His wife may see him as a husband. Huh? It's not absolute. The guru's position is relative. And then even it enters into rasa. Is he in Madhurya Ras? Is he in Sakya Ras? Is he in Vatsalya Ras? You know? Some people say only Madhurya Ras Manjari Bhav. This is one of the points that is raised. Did you hear that one yet? Only Madhurya Ras Manjari Bhav. Every acharya must be.
Oh, yes.
Well, Bamsidas Babaji wasn't. Bamsidas Babaji, who's on every Gaudiya calendar, his picture is on many altars in Mayapur, Navadvip area. He was Vatsalya Ras. He was in Vatsalya Ras. It is known by all Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples. So much for everyone is in Madhurya Ras. So much for that. Bamsidas was in Vatsalya Ras.
He would chastise his deities.
He would chastise his deities like children. He sometimes smoked a hookah. Because Nanda Baba in the spiritual world, they have spiritual hookahs. Don't smoke a hookah here. You see. They're cancer producing. But they're not. Krishna also passing water. Krishna also pissing, as they say in India. What is that? It's not like anything of this world. So many pastimes are there. Dog is there. It is not like a mutt here, some dirty dog passing stool, not clean. That is not dog there. But dog is there. Krishna has 2 dogs. So nothing contaminated there, nothing material there. Everything's spiritual. So that's another.
You also have a further dismissal that the only people who fall away from their association are the ones that weren't in Madhurya Ras anyway.
Thank God for that.
Blessed are the few. Right?
Oh, that's nice. Gee.
Otherwise, nobody.
Nobody. Oh, I don't know about that. Already they're laying all over the place. The road is already pretty strewn. If you get around the world, it's pretty messy already. And there's a lot of people come back from there, like from deep within there, and came back with a really bad taste in their mouth. Really bad taste. Whatever. They will say, oh, these all people are envious. They all went to Maya. Nice, you know. But they all didn't go to Maya. Some of them are sincere servants of their guru. And don't think that you're the only little group of devotees that is not interested in what they're doing or is standing your ground. And it's not that just only ISKCON devotees or ISKCON affiliated devotees think and feel as you do. Thousands of devotees all over the world think like this. They're not conquering the world by far. Even if they doubled and tripled their numbers, still they're vastly outnumbered. But we're not interested in just who's got more numbers. But, you know, that's at least some thought, gee, I'm glad I'm not in this alone. You understand? I mean, you're not alone in your sentiment or your feelings, so.
Perhaps next session, I would really enjoy hearing Chaitanya Leela or Sankirtan Leela from you.
Which kind of Sankirtan?
Well, all the different dimensions of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan.
Well, Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan is, Gaur Leela is so much more mystical than Krishna Leela. Krishna Leela is almost easy to map out in a sense. In fact, the Sajja's got maps of it. With Siddha Pranali, you get a little map also. And it tells you, no, it shows you where Krishna is in the Braj at different times of day, so you can be there in your meditation when he arrives and stuff like that.
Oh.
They even have a map. It's quite mapped out. Mahaprabhu also has Astakaliya Leela. There are 8 divisions in Mahaprabhu's Leela also. And who wrote that book? Maybe Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote that book. Maybe also. Here's an interesting point. Let me just go to the side for a minute. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote a bhajan, which corresponds to the Leelas of Krishna in the 8 divisions of the day. During Kartik, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would always have his disciples sing this. Basically, what it means is that they will enter into the Leelas of Krishna throughout the day through the name of Krishna. Do you follow? Through the holy name they will enter. He did not allow them to discuss at the appropriate time of day the particular Leela. Krishna has a morning Leela, afternoon Leela, evening Leela. He did not allow them to discuss those Leelas. Who are the they? Well, Srila Prabhupada is one of the theys. Remember, Prabhupada is omniscient. He knows everything. He's liberated soul. He's descended from the spiritual world. They say all these things, right? Right. He is amongst the they. They are not to enter this plane through discussion of the Leela, but through the name they are to enter. Srila Prabhupada focused it in our existence totally within the Maha Mantra. When Achyutananda and Yasodananda and others, they wanted to arrange Achyutananda to travel all over the world and sing Bhaktivinoda Thakur's bhajan, as you remember, he was the king of that, right? Prabhupada said, this will not purify anybody. Go chant Hare Krishna. This will purify the world. So a bhajan only has a capacity to help you in devotion if you are very much aware of that bhajan, what you're actually saying. It is a prayer. It is your prayer. You see, it is your prayer. So it will help you in that way. But if you don't know what it is or anything like that, then just hearing it, this is not this is such small purification. Take the holy name of Krishna. This will do maximum good to humanity at large. Maximum good. The prime benediction for humanity at large. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Maharaj, what is the name of that song?
They have different names. The first one is Pita Bharana Kali, Pavanagora. Duhandoya Sagara, which Saraswati Thakur requested to hear.
So we have these songs also. I'm not good at the singing business and these things, but our devotees sing them, at different times. So.
But these bhajans are very potent to evoke our dormant attraction for Krishna.
If you have something already going for you, but if you don't, if my mother would sit down here these things all day, wouldn't know what the heck it was about.
There's Shabda Brahman, there's some benefit.
He said, we're not interested in some. Why collect pennies when gold coins are all around? Pick up the gold coins. Forget the pennies. Pick up the gold. Gold is the holy name, the Maha Mantra. And even an inattentive contact with the holy name will give a maximum benefit. But if somebody goes by the window and they hear Sri Guru Charana Padama, they get so little to no benefit. They walk by the window and they hear Hare or Krishna, what to speak of, the mantra, they get super benefit from that. So we're not interested in partial benefit. We're interested in super benefit. So super benefit comes from the holy name. Krishna's Leela will be entered through the holy name. So they also say, yes, we are also telling the holy name. We will say, do you chant 64 rounds before you talk of the holy name? Right? So then we'll get them chanting 64 rounds before they start their Leela Katha. Then we'll say, did you chant 64 offenseless rounds before the holy name? Right? And we'll just toy with them in that way. And then in the end we'll say, anyway, you're still not fit for that. That's the point. They don't ever want to accept they are not fit for that. So, there is also another thing. If you learn properly, then, well, we say this, not this. This is just part of our duty. There is nothing they can say that I don't know. Nothing. Only they can tell another story. Anyone can tell another story. I can also grab the book of. Do you know this one? Do you know this one? These are stories available in books. You can read them. As concerns the essence of what is Raganuga, what does it mean to be a follower of Rupa Raghunath? The essence of divinity. I am a student of that under the guidance of my gurus. They have no new news to carry to my ears. So, but we have to give some attention to the depth of what we're given. And then you may also say that.
This is very useful. I just wanted to backtrack a little bit. I'm not going to try and disagree. I'm just trying to clarify. Srila Prabhupada in one statement, and correct me if I'm not quoting the proper understanding, it said that all the liberated souls, Narottam Das Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, their chanting, their bhajan, is expanded from the holy name. And did he not say that it is non-different?
Yeah, but it's still, he also said, they said, I'm going to take a Chutananda everywhere. And he just said, this is useless. No one will be purified by this. Take the holy name. So for them, you don't know what he's singing. And that sound is it's a sound. It's not an absolute sound in the terms of the name. It's a feeling. They're expressing a feeling, you see. Just like if you die uttering the name ISKCON, what happens to you?
Take birth in ISKCON.
Take birth in the Gurukul, right? If you die saying International Society for Krishna Consciousness, at least the name of Krishna is there. This anacronym, ISKCON, is not it doesn't replace the holy name. If you say Ramada N, the name of Rama is there, you get Namabhas benefit. Ramada, Rama, Ramada. Well, we're not interested in Namabhas, we're interested in Siddhanam. So, for the higher devotee, yes, there's an incident where Mukunda Dutt, he told Gadadhar Pandit, do you like to meet a Vaishnava? A Vaishnava has come to Navadvip. Then Gadadhar Pandit told, yes, I'm always very happy to meet a Vaishnava. So he took him to the house of Pundarik Vijayanidhi. And they just entered to the door and they just saw beyond the door. And Pundarik Vijayanidhi was sitting in a chair. I don't necessarily think it was a rocking chair, but he was sitting in a chair. And he was beautifully dressed, and with a turban and jewelry and some makeup. I mean, I was just like, what is this? Vishayis, this is sense enjoyers in here. There was a hookah there by his side. Exotic tobaccos were by his side. And Gadadhar Pandit thought in his mind, what kind of a Vaishnava is this? You know, he thought, this is not Vaishnava. Then Mukunda Dutt just turned around and saw his face and could understand, oh, he doesn't see, he's telling, Gadadhar Pandit doesn't see. So this is Leela. They're teaching us something. So then Mukunda, he quoted a verse from Bhagavatam that speaks about how merciful Krishna is, that even the wicked Putana who came to kill him with her poisoned breast, Krishna sucked out the poison and accepted only the motherly affection that she had come with, you see, purified her and gave her a position in Goloka amongst the Vatsalya section. So he quoted this verse, and I'm not very good with languages in Sanskrit and so forth, so he quoted this verse in Sanskrit from Bhagavatam. The sound of that wasn't the holy name. The sound of that, describing the mercy of Krishna, then this entered the ear of Pundarik and went into his heart and created like a super tornado of emotion. And what transpired is then, it is described in Chaitanya Bhagavat, was an alarming situation. And I don't know in the order of things, but he became very grave. and then shaking his head. And then he just threw his turban off and he began to condemn these jewels and throw them left and right and smashed his hookah with his foot. He became absolutely mad. Absolutely mad. He just came in contact with the sound of Krishna Leela. And he is King Vrishabhanu, the father of Srimati Radharani, so he's quite qualified for these subjects. So just coming in touch with that sound, not the name direct, just the sound of the Leela. So a higher devotee may come in touch with the sound of Bhaktivinoda's song or the sound of Narottam, just a little aspect of the sound, what to speak of the whole song, and that will just carry them deep into that plane. But they are fit for that, you see? Look, it is said that the peacock feather is an impetus for ecstatic love of God. You know what that means? It's there in Nectar of Devotion. Seeing the peacock feather, the devotees who have attained ecstatic love for Krishna, that love is awakened. So it's not always awake then. If it's awakened by seeing that, then sometimes it must retire. It's just not always bubbling. But seeing that. Now, the king of Iran, he had a throne called the peacock throne. And peacocks are for sale, and feathers, and they're in zoos, and kids look at them every day. But nobody falls into ecstasy. And Darwin said, whenever I see the eye in the peacock's tail, it makes me sick. I thought, this is a really unfortunate fellow. Because the theory of the eye in Darwin's philosophy really perplexed him. How does a blank spot of head develop into an eye? It's a real hard one to fit into the evolutionary theory that's based on necessity. How do you ever develop the necessity to see from the side of your face? And an eyeball comes out of your head, you know. So they always explain how the flippers became arms and stuff, you know. But the eye, it perplexed him. And then the beauty of the peacock's eye, but it has no seeing capacity. The whole thing just muddled his brain. He said, and it's a quote, whenever I see the eye in the peacock's tail, it makes me sick. You see? But those who are awake, those who are in the plane of ecstatic love of Krishna, they see the peacock. Look, you go to Iran, you go to Istanbul, and on the third day, if you're walking down the street and you see a peacock feather on display in a window, you'll say, Prabhu, look, peacock feather. You get far enough away from Krishna and the things that you know, Krishna, your pictures, you get far enough away from these things, oh, look at that peacock feather. That will even move you, you see. But my mother's seen the peacocks 1,000 times. She has not trembled even once in the love of Krishna, you see. So, some things will affect us if we already have some status. But the holy name will affect us and help us to come to that status. Therefore, it is more valuable. And if you are also in that status, oh, the holy name of Krishna. It is said that the holy name is so great that when Mahaprabhu was experiencing the Leelas of Krishna, the devotees, he was in trance, fainted. The devotees performed the Sankirtan of the holy name, and it drew Mahaprabhu back from the Leela of Krishna. And first he said, I was there. I saw Radha and Krishna in a grove. I was picking flowers for them. Then there was this sound. And this sound has brought me here. And externally, Mahaprabhu showed an annoyance. But the purport of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Bhaktivinoda Thakur is that externally, Mahaprabhu showed an irritation. Why you made this sound? This noise, he called it. This noise brought me back from that beautiful place. But the real purport is that he found it even sweeter than the Leela of Krishna itself. The holy name of Krishna is complete, Purnam, with everything. It contains all the Leela of Krishna in one beautiful mantra. It contains all the rasas in one mantra. It is the Maha Mantra. The all Leela of Krishna is contained in Maha Mantra. So there, he gave preference, attraction to the sweet name of Krishna. You see? So like the ocean is pushing this way, and then this way, and then this way, the name taking him to Krishna, the name drawing him back to the name, and again taking him to Krishna. Madness. Madness. Are you prepared for madness? Madmen. We are to become madmen. Mad men and women.
That's it. Many times.
I have a question about the name. So some people that are there into before they were not chanting,
Can
and now they are chanting. And, what was that?
they were? This light is just blaring in my face for some reason. Yes, I'm listening.
So, like, I explained that to one person who was attracted to them, and I'm trying to preach to that person. So I said, okay, they were not chanting, so that's an offense. That's the holy name.
They were not chanting.
Yeah.
Your
And
spiritual
now
life
they're
is really
chanting, but it's chanting in such a way that they are going against a lot of people and a lot of devotees. So their chanting is even worse when they were not chanting.
You figure they're
So,
going
like,
up because now
They
they're
were
getting new
going
things
on.
going
Can I finish? So they were going on from one type of offense to another type of offense, and basically they were just continuing to be offensive to some extent. So, are all those people that are attracted by because they say, "Oh, no, I was not enthusiastic. Now I'm unenthusiastic, and I'm going to Kartik on Parakrama."
Good for you.
Vrindavan,
Haribol.
Mandal program.
Good for you, Haribol.
So,
We'll be there to sell you some books.
so is it that that's the right understanding that they were chanting here big kirtan for 3 hours on New Year's Eve, right? And they were all chanting, but where is that kind of chanting?
You know, we used to watch sometimes a devotee just before he would bloop, would get really ecstatic. Because in his mind, he's already planning to leave.
Huh.
And depends on what's inside, not what's outside. 3 hours is nice. The Hajiyas in Vrindavan chant 24 hours a day. The kirtan at Das Goswami Samadhi has been going on for 38 years, 24 hours a day. 3 hours didn't even a drop in the bucket. So it doesn't mean 3 hours is bad. It doesn't mean 3 hours is good. What's going on inside, you see? Tears don't mean anything also. They may be tears of Pratishta. It may be the holy name of Pratishta. There may be so much false pride inside. So, you know, it's not our business. It's certainly not my business to go around be the judge of everyone who's chanting the holy name. You're chanting 3 hours, very good. I'd rather hear you chant than hear you talk. So keep on chanting. That's very nice. But if it is not a genuine thing, then we will see some shortcomings will be there. You know, there'll be some shortcomings. But maybe they'll go on. Maybe they'll go on increasing 64 rounds a day and so many things. There are. Nitai Gaur Radhe Sham Babas, standard 64 rounds a day. So many Babas in Vrindavan. I saw the young sannyasi that you speak of. He came to my ashram 3 years ago or 2 years ago? 3 years ago, whatever it was, in Vermont. He was still a brahmachari. He came with Puru. They arrived, Puru from New York. They arrived one night about 10:30. It was already like getting towards taking rest. And they arrived, and so Puru is an old godbrother, and my little cabin has a loft. So there's some stairs and goes up. So Puru is going to stay up there with me, and there's a little brahmachari room, and Govardhan, who's over there on the camera, he was there. So Puru I know for a long time. This young man I don't know. I kind of know. I already know what's in the air. This is nearly 3 years ago. But anyway, so I welcome them in, and I go upstairs with Puru, and we start to talk. He had brought me Srila Prabhupada's gong from Henry Street, and he gave it to me, the brass gong with the big red handle on it. So that was very nice. I knew he was bringing that, so I was very happy. And they weren't in the house maybe 5 minutes, and I just hear, you know, Gopi, Manjari, biting, lip. I just hear these random words. And I thought to myself, what does this kid know? He didn't know who Govardhan is. How does he know Govardhan is fit or unfit to hear these things? Just the whole sound. It's just Pratishta. It it was just like, it wasn't spiritual greed. It was like material greediness. See how much I know. See how great I am. See how great we are. See how little you know. It reeked of it. It reeked of it. So I just leaned over the edge of I said, hey, 10:30, take rest. So I just shut them down and they took rest. The next day in the morning, just before class, there was a Govardhan Shila on my altar. So this boy's looking around and he says, oh, is that Govardhan? And Govardhan Das says, yes, that's Govardhan. He gets all ecstatic and sits down in front of Govardhan. Just sits up there and Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. He's just like pinned right on the Govardhan Shila, right? So I'm up there and I'm standing on the balcony and I'm looking down and it's just like, this is ridiculous, you know. So then devotees started arriving. Devotees that were as old as his mother and as old as his father. Some older Prabhupada disciples, huh? They were, you know, artists, Mother Dirga, there's Jagadishwar, Jayadev, just some of the older devotees in the community started coming in. And when he was still a kid, kicking a soccer ball around the streets, they were out there on the Harinam serving Srila Prabhupada. So basically the senior Vaishnavas in this world that he lives in started coming in. There was no movement towards them. I'm looking at this, I'm watching them arrive. There is no movement. Is this guy's dead or what? It's like God is in the heart, Krishna is in the heart. It's like there's something happening here, and he's just a stone sitting there staring at Govardhan, you see. And he's totally in neglect of the devotees. There's not a drop of humility in him. Not a drop. Just arrogance, you know. So I told Govardhan, I called him, I said, tell the guy to sit at the back, get away from the altar, you know. So I had him move him away. And anyway, there was class, and then sometime later in the day, he went out and went somewhere, and they were invited to eat at prasadam at a devotee's home. So he went right in there and started to tell him that, you know, if you got Gayatri, but you didn't get your eternal Leela at the time of the Gayatri, you really didn't get initiated, and Gurudev when he gives the Gayatri, and just going through this whole elaborate thing, which is a process of undoing, because nobody receives Gayatri that way. Nobody. Not anybody. Not Bhakti Vinod, not Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, not Prabhupada, not Sridhar Maharaj, not Puri Maharaj, not Keshav Maharaj, not Narayan Maharaj. Nobody received Gayatri that way. Absolutely nobody. So they got this whole thing going. If you didn't get it in this way, you didn't really get it. Well, that kind of like puts us all out of the picture, including Prabhupada, including Keshav Maharaj, everybody. You know? So, but while this was going on, then Puru asked me, he said, oh, Prabhu, he really gives a rasic class. Could he give the class tomorrow morning? I said, not as long as I'm alive. Not as long as I'm alive. And not as long as any of my disciples are alive. He will never give the class here. Never. I told him. Then again, he tried again. He said, you know, when he chants japa, he's always weeping and crying. I said, you leave him here for 6 weeks. I'll solve that problem. So I'm not impressed by this. You weeping, crying. I was more impressed. Here are the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who are old as his parents. They enter the room. There's no movement. There's no movement here. There must be some movement. If he's a high devotee, there must be some movement. There must be some recognition. You see? No movement. Dead as a stone. So I'm not impressed with that. Not impressed with that at all. And it's not that I'm just not impressed. It is telling of their actual position. It is really, really telling. To move amongst the higher devotees is such a profound experience, especially when it comes down to like the ordinary level of things. I mean, you have to understand, and it's easy to understand, we dealt with Srila Prabhupada, most of us, like he was the king. He was the ambassador. There was the huge reception at the airport. There was the car garlanded with flowers. There was the flower petals to the Vyasasan. There was the silk seats and cushions and just garlands and this and that and gorgeous puja. And then there was Charnamrita from the silver bowl. Most of us didn't make it up to the room. And even in the West, the room was just elegantly laid out to just as nice as we could make it. And it was very, 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 very formal. In India, Srila Prabhupada's sitting there in his gamcha behind his desk with no shirt. And devotees are sitting there talking to him. He just walks out and starts walking around the property in his gamcha. He never did that in Detroit, walk out in the yard in his gamcha. Never. Very, very formal. Very, very like this. Huh? So it was very, very rare for devotees. Some devotees had the opportunity, though. They served so close to Srila Prabhupada. It became very affectionate, and love and affection became the basis of that relation. Most of us were in service with awe and reverence. That was our basis, you see. So that will draw us in with internally. That does, not will, it does draw us into an intimate, affectionate relation. But formally, we were and still are positioned at a distance, formally serving and respecting. But internally, there is development of intimacy and love. So there were others. There was, as I said, there was Krishnadas Babaji, there was Srila Sridhar Maharaj, there was Srila Puri Maharaj. And that mood was, they were not the world ambassadors, so to speak. They were in their modest mutts. They were in a situation which was extremely familiar in a sense. Familiar in that devotees sometimes sat in their rooms almost all day long. I mean, we have video, you can see them one of these nights of the devotees coming to Srila Puri Maharaj. And I mean, he's showing as much. Jayadvaita Swami loves our books. He says, at least somebody has had the sense to preserve what Srila Sridhar Maharaj said and is now presenting that in the form of books. From Jayadvaita, that's a big statement. I mean, he's dyed in the wool, Prabhupada, man. Jayadvaita? For him to say that is like, gee whiz, you know?
He's very intelligent.
Yeah. Guru Prasad, this one, that one. Radhanath Swami, Sachinandan Swami, Damodar Swami, Bhakti Bringa Govinda Swami, and there's a long list. Some of their names are even on the Mandala purchasers list. They call in on the 800 number and buy books from us regularly, and Ganapati Swami buys books regularly from us and sells them on his table, gets all Srila Sridhar Maharaj's books. So then, but officially, there are resolutions in the GBC that whoever reads these books can be excommunicated. So I'm gonna push it in this way. Either stop reading these books and give up being hypocrites, you see, or remove this restriction. You're bending the brain of some devotees, like you got the crowbar over their head, and then you're sitting out there in your motorhome thinking this is great material, you know. So either go, I'm going to push them. Either it's all or nothing. I don't care to sell you guys the books. Either
they realize that many resolutions are just completely off the wall. They made a committee some years ago.
Clean out the resolution.
Cleaning out the old resolutions nobody was following anyway.
Yeah, well, this is one that nobody's following, and it's still there. Now, if somebody else, a lot of devotees, they just don't know. So, but there's a devotee somewhere. No, we run into it all the time. All of a sudden we run into a new type of person, and they're being told that these books are inimical to Prabhupada. If you read them, you will leave Prabhupada, you will leave Krishna. Your soul is lost forever. In the meantime, 2 rooms over is a GBC reading the book. And it's not because, well, I'm going to check this out, and check this. No, he's like sucking it up, reading the book.
It's like,
so the poor guy's suffering. The bhakta, they're suffering because they're being played around like a tennis ball. Somebody else is reading them. So, get on the left or get on the right, but get out of the middle of the road. Make a choice and stick with it, So that's going to be the recommendation, is that my suggestion, they remove the ban and leave it to the discretion of the Prabhupada disciple, the GBC of the zone, the temple president, the senior devotee, or the guru, however it has to be worded, so that it leaves some people with the prerogative, I don't want my disciples to read those books. Fine, Maharaj, those are your disciples, that's your prerogative. I can tell you what to do with your disciples, they're your disciples.
Decentralizing the whole autocracy of it.
Yeah, well, they got everything in there backwards. So, then but Guru Prasad, he feels the book should be mandatory reading. I said, I don't think they're going to accept that. If we ask for too much, the whole thing will be chaotic. They'll postpone it to another committee for another year.
Right.
So I'm going to try to get, that much. And I have no plan and then we want to do this, and then we want to do that. No, there's only a few things. And then I would make some suggestions. I'm also going to show them there's a book distributor company in America called Book People. They distribute 15,000 different titles. They're a new age. Is it called new age? They're kind of a
New Age.
metaphysical book house. They distribute such books, In the religion and philosophy department, they have 1,500 titles. Of those 1,500 titles, they've got about 6 or 8 books published by us. And of those 1,500 different titles they sell in books, philosophy and religion, one of our books is in the top selling 10 category. Nothing of Srila Prabhupada is in there. Nothing. It's not even, there's nowhere. Zero. I'm going to suggest, come on, guys, the world is changing, Okay, you got book distributors, Hari Bol, but let's get some of Prabhupada's books out in the world, and there's a way to do it. And I'm going to suggest we start with something like Ishopanishad. It's an Upanishad. There's a great interest in the Vedanta, the Ramayana, the Upanishads, and the Gita these days. Let's at least take the, let's write another introduction to go along with that, like a preface, that kind of brings the book into the relevance of the 21st century, and present it. Let's get Prabhupada's books out there too, and I'll work on it with you. I'll help you with it. Right? That's all I want to do. I don't want to go around to ISKCON temples. I don't have time. I got my own headaches to look after. Ashrams, cows, school. I mean, it's small, but it drives me crazy. There's already enough, But, for certain things, I would be in a mood of cooperation and do things. I wouldn't turn over a car to ISKCON right now. I wouldn't surrender nothing, not a dime. What, to speak of my dear properties and stuff? You're going to put this place in ISKCON's name? No way, No way, that'd be suicide. You know what's going to happen there next, I wouldn't want to put my name in there close.
I never wanted any individual properties put in ISKCON's name anyway. I thought he wanted all under separate umbrellas so that it wouldn't...
Well, I'm not so sure about all the detail, but I know decentralization was there. But see, there's a problem in the way courts have gone, legal suits have gone. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, in this country. I mean, you can get sued for just looking at your neighbor if he's got the money to take you to court. I mean, laws become... I mean, look what happened to O.J. Simpson. The guy murdered 2 people and he just walked, Look what happened to Rodney King. The guy got beat to a pulp, sued for, millions of dollars and ended up in debt. The lawyers got it all. A mockery of justice. So, there's some problem in the way Srila Prabhupada set it up that it doesn't escape the current viciousness of a legal system. It works perfect for a devotee system of honest dealings and spiritual structure and management.
25 years ago, it was different.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's changing. So, I think they're trying to change things. But I don't know. That's not my expertise. I don't know about that.
Before, that's what they demanded, right? That you turn over your properties to...
Oh yeah, that was in demand just a few years ago. I said, you got to be kidding me, what little I own, I'm sure not giving it to you. And then you give me my walking papers 6 months from now. No, thank you.
The Prabhupada's formula was controlled by love and trust and inspiration, and the formula is controlled by, getting your name all over the properties.
Right.
Keeping it.
That's there. I mean, it's there. Prabhupada gives direction to GBC, and he says love and trust, unity and diversity. He uses this word several times. Paramandrati Maharaj, he printed all these things years ago and said, you are not following Prabhupada. You are managing this society according to Machiavelli. And it's true. And Prabhupada said love and trust and unity and diversity are the 2 sets of words that he used the most in directing the GBC into how to. Love, trust, unity, and diversity. And there is no love and trust in there. It's just calculation and wicked politics. You know.
I think it is changing.
Yeah.
There are different personalities in there. Like
there are more. It's changed. It's changed dramatically.
Writing on the wall that we really haven't done the best job here.
No, I tell them, look, I'm not just into pointing the finger. I'm ready to say we and bow my head and whatever little funky part I played in the foul up. I'm not into, oh, it's all your fault, it's all your fault. It's a big time we, which every disciple of Prabhupada can raise his hand to that we. Don't just say, oh, it's his fault, it was Tamal's fault, it was this. Ultimately, it's a big we, you know, and maybe that makes it a little easier for others to like adjust. What's left of them, most of them are gone. The people that made the horrific decisions, and they're not around anymore even. They're not even there. They're gone. They're gone. Some of them aren't even alive. They're dead. Some of them are even dead, you know?
It's very hard to reverse that, the difficulties that are, we carry today. It's very hard to reverse that.
Well, healing has to happen. It just seems to me that there has to be healing and forgiveness also. I mean, doesn't forgiveness play a role?
Yes, but it's so big. It's just like, everybody's at this one big party. I'm into like, my mood is like, I sent a message to Shivaram Swami. Some time back, he sent his obeisances via somebody, and I said, okay, when you go back to London, you please tell Shivaram Swami my humble request that he should leave ISKCON. Him, Bhakti Bringa Govinda Maharaj, and whoever else of like-mindedness, they should do what they know to be right. Don't take any money, don't take any property. Just make the announcement, we're going to do this the way we feel is it's right. And who wants to come with you comes, who doesn't, that's all. You start from scratch. And that was just like a shock. He sent back a message, said, I could never leave ISKCON. I could never leave Prabhupada. It was just like, he somehow or another tied the whole two things together. Basically what I was saying, why don't you leave this mess and establish what's Prabhupada's movements, what you feel in your heart is the true mission of Prabhupada. Why don't you just do that? Call it, whatever you want. International Sangha for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, ISKCON. Call it that and call it ISKCON if you want. I don't care what you call it. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's what you do that matters, not the name. If you came to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, the leaders at the United Nations have all decided that Bhagavad Gita will be distributed in every home in every country of the world. Problem is they don't like the name International Society for Krishna Consciousness. They'd rather you called it the World Society for Krishna Consciousness. Prabhupada said, why are you standing here? Change the name, you bean brain. You think he would say, no, it's going to be called ISKCON. No, such a thing would never happen. But the point is, he didn't come here to make a name of a society and drill it into everybody's head. He came here to spread love of God. And he had a society in India for that purpose called the League of Devotees. He had previously been a member of a society in India started by his Guru Maharaj for that purpose. When things became unmanageable and difficult, he went on with the purpose and established ISKCON. And according to Achyutananda, who was there when the registration papers came out of the envelope, and they, Prabhupada, now ISKCON is registered. According to Achyutananda, he wrote us a letter and said, at that time Prabhupada was very grave, and then he said, if this society ever becomes problematic, he used the word problematic, I think he meant a problem, then we may leave that and simply go on chanting Hare Krishna. Now this is according to Achyutananda. Now I reason that, because he's already seen this happen. Mm-hmm. He's already seen this. And do you know what it was for him to walk away from Bhaktisiddhanta's movement? To leave that? What do you think? There's some Kmart kind of thing happening there with a bunch of cheap goods in it? No way. That was the heart, sweat, and blood of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. That Bagh Bazaar, their temple, their activities, their books, Mayapur, the sweat of Bhaktivinoda. Bhaktivinoda, door to door, begging to build that temple, establish the birth site of Mahaprabhu, all these things, and he had to walk away from that? That wasn't an easy thing. And And now he started ISKCON. It will never happen again. It seems to me, I believe that Chutananda was not stretching the truth. Prabhupada said that.
Well, he said it again also when he created the BBT. He said everything may fail, but my book should be separately maintained, and nobody can go on.
Yeah.
But he'd also told Giriraj Maharaj that Giriraj Maharaj asked him, if there's so many troubles in ISKCON, what should I do? And he said you should stay and try to work within the movement to correct.
Yeah. So things are given. Both things are given. I didn't just jump up and run out the door. I mean, I stayed there for 10 years, and I didn't leave. I was thrown out. I was told to leave. I was told you cannot come to the temple anymore.
Sure.
I was just told. I know so many people were told. They didn't leave. I didn't go, I'm leaving. I was on my way to the Brooklyn Temple, and I was called up in advance. I said, don't come here. Don't come to New York. I said, well, like New York's a big place, Which part of it are you controlling? I said, oh, the temple. I said, okay, I won't come there. So I stayed in the house of some disciples of Srila Sridhar Maharaj who had a fruit shop called the Prabhupada Fruit Shop in Jamaica, Queens in Brooklyn. I stayed there almost a month with them, And they had a meeting. They chaired, the GBC chaired that, Tamal Krishna Maharaj and others, and they brought in, because I was the zonal secretary a co-zonal secretary in New York, Long Island, New Jersey, and Detroit. And I was the head of life membership for all of the United States. And so they called in. I had an office in New York with, a few devotees that worked in that, Dwaita, Mukunda, Mother Anjari. I worked very close with Satyaraj. We wrote together for BTG. And so they called these devotees in and told them, Jagat Guru Swami is the enemy of Prabhupada. And they were like, say what? And he said, he's the enemy of Prabhupada. And they know me so close, those devotees. Still, to this day, I keep a connection with all those devotees. They know me. They never believed it for a second. And they just drilled them on this. And then they told him, anybody who assists him, anybody who shelters him or has anything to do with him is also the enemy of Prabhupada. And it was like, woo. And that's like Mussolini's rule or something, that type of thing. So none of that has worked. It didn't even work at the time. It's just like, oh, gee. And they came to see me, and I said, well, it's like, don't get your toes cut off in this thing, just take care. We'll see what happens in the future.
You ever seen that movie, Persuaders?
Yeah, I saw that.
That's the epitome of this whole
yeah. So, we say, we were talking about higher adjustment, higher vision, Krishna everywhere. It's like, wow, well, where is Krishna in all of this? This is some chaos. We're talking about Prabhupada's movement being broken into pieces, parts of it dissolving, bigger parts of it in great danger. One time, Srila Sridhar Maharaj says, so our Guru Maharaj is left this world. We should live on, business as usual, everything is fine. He said, the troubles that come and attack us are evidence of his greatness. Because without him, these things came forward. When he was present, all these things, even if they came, they were just like silenced and put out of the picture. He dealt with so much. Even there was great, when Bali Mardan did that thing, it was great. Karandar left. So nobody's faith hardly wavered. He was there. And now just like, hang on to your seats. It could get worse than we've ever seen it yet. And in one sense, it's like a hard one to swallow, but it is a confirmation of his greatness. And we should not think, oh, everything will just be, wonderful. There'll be tests. There'll be problems.
There's such propaganda that everything is actually on track. Everything is hunky-dory. This is a constant propaganda machine.
Yeah. Did you ever read
some of the GBC
about the last Mughal emperors?
I don't think that's very prominent at all.
No,
it was a few years ago.
Yeah, but this
5 or 6 years ago.
But now that they've been hit with the kids coming forward.
Ouch!
Denial is finally over.
I don't know anybody who thinks things are great. No one.
Oh, that's a good sign then. That's a good sign.
They know exactly what to do, but
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Wow. What is this
You know
thing?
what's frustrating though? Like 3 years ago, when I asked Badri Narayan if Rupa could stay at the ashram, just so that he would have a place near school and that he could still maintain sadhana, he wouldn't let him because he was your disciple.
Yeah.
Now, when I said we're going up to a seminar that Narasingh Maharaj is coming, he goes, "Oh yeah," he said, "Boy, am I glad he's in our corner now." And I just wanted to go like
It's
this.
just like-
Excuse
yeah.
me.
It's just like this. I'm like this. I'm like this. Could you come over here in my corner a minute? Could you come just a little closer? That's what Tripurari Maharaj said. He said the rumor is going to spread all over ISKCON that you came back to ISKCON. You know.
Why?
I don't know. He said, there's just like this thing. It's like, if you join their team, that means
Right,
their
it's
team is
so-
right. It's like, wait a minute. That's not what I'm
doing.
doing.
I got like,
You see, do you know what the name of my society is?
of your society?
Yeah.
Yeah, Chaitanya Saraswati.
No. Do you know what it is, Ramdas?
Which one?
Govinda Gardens.
Yes, Govindaji Gardens, right? Okay, I have one in India and one in Vermont. 501.
One of them's the Hare Krishna movement, or something like that, right?
That's a DBA.
Okay.
I have so many names, hard to keep track of.
Nature's Guardian.
Okay, in all the talks and lectures that I give and talks, how many times have I mentioned our society? And the answer is none. Devotees don't even know what the society is they belong to.
What is this?
But they know they belong to
Okay, so what is
the
it?
line of Prabhupada's disciple. They know they belong in Mahaprabhu's movement. And, I'm not going to try to build another world society. You know who makes you have a society? You know who made Prabhupada register ISKCON, really? Is the government.
Yeah.
You already belong to the society as the parampara. We belong to the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, the Chaitanya Saraswati. There's different ways to, name that Sampradaya, what it is. It would be Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. Then what is Liga Devotee? That's so you can open a bank account. That's so you can be tax exempted. That's so he could get a green card to stay in this country.
And also,
All these things. It's the government that makes you do these things. It's not the requirement of the spiritual world. These things didn't exist until 1920. There was no society, registered society. Well, Bhakti Vinod, they sometimes registered like a sangha. Yeah, I don't know if Vishwa Hindu Parishad, Vishwa Vaishnava Raj Sabha, I don't know if that was ever like registered according to government code. But I know Srila Bhaktisiddhanta registered, Gaudiya Mission, he registered. And that's been a requirement of doing. Actually, in America, you don't have to register your religion. But you can't open a bank account unless you do. You can practice your religion. You don't have to register it. But you can't open a bank account. You got to have
Become tax exempt.
Yeah, it's all about money is the bottom line. You got to beat the taxes. So you got,
in 1966, when Prabhupada,
still in cash.
in 1966, the Vietnam War was building up, and Prabhupada was told by his young initiates or young students that Prabhupada, we may be drafted into the army, you have to go out to this war, they said, well, yet if we're religious ministers, we will become exempt. And so that happened. That was one of the reasons.
But Srila Prabhupada also mentions that a sannyasi must have a spiritual institution. There should be a spiritual institution. And there should be a framework. There should be a foundation. And we want to preach in a systematic way, not just in a chaotic way. It's like, what are you doing at the mall? I was here this weekend. Just like banging into each other. And then we're overrunning some turf, totally neglecting another turf. It's like, it's chaotic. It's not intelligent. Organized missionary activities is the call for this last century and this century, and we're not going to see it change in our life. But I'm just pointing out, I don't have society consciousness as part of my agenda. It would be fine to me if it's ISKCON. It would be more than fine. That name means more to me than any name I've come up with for my own work. But it's sad that it's in the shape that it's in, and I'm not going to go tag my name onto that for love nor money.